on tap for you guys tonight. It is going to be something else. It really is, guys. So I hope you guys that like to fish for striper, you guys are y'all are in for a damn treat. There's really no other way of describing it, because we have arguably 4 of some of the most prominent striper fishermen here in North Georgia. And we have, I'm just going to say all 4 of y'all are celebrities. One of them everyone will probably say he's more of a celebrity than any of the rest of us, but we'll pipe him in here in just a second. But you guys are in for a great show. I got to take care of some business, though, beforehand. Paul's going to be coming on back over here in a minute. I'm going to let him take this thing again. He's going to ride. He likes to fish for striper, trash fish, whatever you want to call them. I'm a bass guy. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. Now, striper have feelings too. They have feelings too. So, but now, in all seriousness, guys, we'll take care of some business, and I'm gonna let Paul come over here, and he's gonna jump back in. So, this episode of the Livewell, as always, is brought to you by For Her Outdoor Apparel. For Her Outdoor Apparel, Jennifer, her granddaughter Peyton, they're absolutely fantastic people. They have a great lineup of great apparel. Let's get that banner up there, Paul, when you can. They have a lot of good stuff, not just for the special female angler in your life, but they also got some good looking stuff for men. Jennifer actually brought me a shirt, and it's got an American flag and a fish behind it, and it's gray. It looks really good. I really like it. Of course, I like her hat. This is a Richardson, by the way. Can't go wrong with those. So she has Richardson hats, including the ponytail hats and all that good stuff. So Jennifer and Peyton, we love them to death. They're great, and we appreciate their sponsorship. And you can go get anything and everything that you can possibly want at www.forheroutdoor.com. So go check them out. We also wanted to talk to you about what we mentioned last week, one of our newest sponsor that we have, which is Red Bobber Gear. Now, Red Bobber, probably all of you guys, including Mr. Henry Cowen, who is on the other end, probably at some point fished with a red bobber. There's nothing absolutely wrong with that. We all started out at some point probably doing that. But Red Bobber Gear, make memories with a little red bobber. So go see them at www.redbobbergear.com. They got a lot of great stuff as well. They actually have the trademark on the red bobber too. So when you get something from them, it is trademarked, so be wary of that. But they're great people. Kyle Gore, he's fantastic. They're a local company. They're here in Canton, Georgia. Go support them. And Buford Dam Bait and Tackle, as always, we want to remind all of you at Buford Dam Bait, all of you guys, of Buford Dam Bait and Tackle. They have restocks of live bait. They've got trout, they've got herring, they've got shad, they've got everything you could possibly want to go catch some striped bass. Can we call them striped bass, or should we call them stripers?
Stripers.
Okay, so stripers, not to be confused with strippers.
We in North Georgia.
Yeah, not to be confused with strippers, according to Facebook, because everyone always types in strippers, but it's spelled stripers. So, not to be confused with strippers, stripers. But they have everything and anything that you could possibly need. They got all kinds of stuff. Go see the guys at 2595 Buford Dam Road, Cumming, Georgia, 30041. Give Dave and Alan and guys a call, 706-429-7211. We appreciate them a lot. They are about to be restocked here in the next day or two with some True Grit Tackle jigs, just to let you guys know, for you guys that might be wanting to get some. And they offer discounts to all veterans, all current service members, and then police, fire, and medical, whether you are currently doing that job or you retired from that job. They do have a discount. So we appreciate Buford Dam Bait and Tackle. J&S Contracting Services, that's Jason Sayers. He's a fisherman just like us. He's a good old boy. They got 23 years of experience serving the lake country all over the place. SB in the tickers, by the way, Paul. But J&S Contracting Services, Mr. Jason Sayers, he will be fishing the Toyota Series next season. We're going to make sure we always say that for Mr. Jason Sayers. And he ordered some True Grit Tackle jigs the other day. There's something about them True Grit Tackle jigs. I don't know if you're a bass fisherman. There's something about them. Maybe because they catch fish. I don't know, but that's whatever. Maybe that's a shameless plug on my end. So, and also his other adventure, which you just seen pop up on the screen there, which is Elite Landscaping and Pressure Washing Services. That is also Jason Sayers' other side project that he has going on. So give them guys a call, 706-816-2049, and we appreciate their sponsorship as well. And always, we love Miss Rachel Collins with 400 Homes. She's right there. She's wonderful. Call Rachel, 770-310-0599 if you need to buy or sell your home. Listen, the market right now is tough. And if you want someone who's going to work hard for you and she's going to put every single ounce of energy she has into making sure she can buy or sell your home, whatever it is that you need to do, look her up, contact her. She'll definitely help you out. Now, last thing before I let Paul have it. It's the holiday season, Christmas time. Woohoo! Santa Claus is coming to town. Thanksgiving, all that good stuff. But probably one of the things that everyone gets most excited about is Black Friday. So Black Friday. And for this year, for the first time ever at Fish North Georgia, we are having a FNG Black Friday blowout. Now, I'm just going to run through a few of these things that we have for sale here. This is running now, and it'll be running all the way through Christmas time, guys. So pay attention to this. I got a lot of great stuff that I'm getting rid of, and I want you guys to be able to get a good deal.
Make it sound like junk.
It's not. It's not junk. I'm trying to get it in you guys' hands. That's what I'm trying to do here.
So get it in my hands.
Listen, FX rods normally $189.99. They are on sale in store only for $139.99. You will not be able to get them any cheaper any other time of the year than right now. Abu Garcia winch rods are normally $164.99. They're on sale for $119.99. The Veritas rods, the PLX rods, the white rods, the white rods, they're normally $119.99. Guess how much we're selling them for? $79.99.
You gonna fire up the cash register?
I'm gonna be firing up the cash register. Don't worry, you guys. Listen, I'm already making a sale here. It's Mr. O'Shaughnessy here. It's your Jersey cat.
I need white rods for the night videos. So.
I noticed that in some of your videos. You throw your mix sticks and stuff on white rods.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Duckets, so I'm looking for something else.
Duckets suck.
Yeah, for the price point, they're okay.
Plug it like it is. Jeremy's over here. He runs Shimano stuff.
Well, I'm a quantum guy when it comes to reels.
Quantum guy,
Shimano's
guy.
have a little bump in their bail arm that doesn't work for me.
Shimano reels and Dobbins rods. I am like, whatever feels good.
I like white rods, but they don't make a white rod. In my night videos, I use the Mojo Bass, but they're purple. You can see my reel, but you can't see anything else.
There's a 10 would be invisible, wouldn't they?
Yeah, at night they're practically invisible.
Terry's mantra is, if it's free, it's for me.
That's right.
I like that mantra.
There's Mr. Henry Cowen, by the way. There is you guys. That is our celebrity for the night. That our fourth celebrity is Mr. Henry Cowen here, and these guys will probably say he's a bigger celebrity than them. But we love Henry and we appreciate Henry. He's got some great literature that you need to read, which we're going to let him shamelessly plug at the end of the episode.
I'm actually reading that book right now.
Terry's actually reading the book right now. Danny, when he was in Chattanooga a couple weeks, the particular bait and tackle shop that he stopped in, they had Henry's book. They're sitting there on the little what's that little thing that rolls around and you spin it?
Carousel.
Carousel. Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, I guess right. I don't know. Lazy Susan, maybe.
Lazy Susan.
I don't know. There's a lot of different things. So, all the casting rods, though, that we have core rods, we have icon rods, and we have John Cruz series rods. They're all 30% off the prices marked across the board. Fitzgerald rods, we have the Brian Thrift series of Fitzgerald rods. They're normally $189.99. They're $129.99. That is a deal. All Berkeley products, whether it is the Berkeley Power Bait or the Berkeley Maxent, normally $7.99. $4.99 a pack. Kitex, they were $5.99. Then I dropped them to $4.99. And now I'm going to be selling every single one of them. No, doesn't matter what size. $3.99 a pack.
No, you might have to fire up the cash.
$3.99 a pack for the Kitex. You guys see, look, Alex is like, oh, we're going to fire up the cash register.
Damn it.
You guys need to come over here and come see me. You guys need to come see me, seriously, because I'm trying to take care of all of you guys. True Grit jigs are normally $5.49, and they are $4.59 now. With the True Grit jigs, if you make a purchase in store or online over $50, you get your name thrown in the hat for a year's worth of jigs. It's about 4 jigs a week is what you're going to get. No, I will not give you 150 at once. Sorry. I will give you 4 a week. So all of our Yak Attack stuff that we have, and you guys have been in the store and you guys may have seen some pictures. We've got a big old tower full of Yak Attack stuff. Every bit of that is 30% off. All of it. Price is marked. 30% off.
You may have to fire with cash register.
Okay, we're going to have to car. Listen, you guys come up here right now.
She's gonna be singing this evening.
We'll let these guys talk the rest of the evening. I'll come run
Great Wednesday midnight sale.
Absolutely. FNG apparel. I've been selling it like hotcakes, guys. It is like sausage links on the griddle, dude. I have FNG apparel. These hoodies right here, normally $40. They're $30. T-shirts are $15.99. Short sleeves. Long sleeves, $19.99. Yeah, I mean you set up. You set up. Also, all Spro. Listen, this gets better. All Spro, Rapala, and Berkeley hard baits that we have in store. They're all normally around $11.99 to $10.99, depending upon what they are. It doesn't matter. Every single one of them are $8.99. They're all $8.99. And then Chrome Sabills, normally $11.99. $8.99.
Yeah, the 2 I bought from you last time I was here, I already flung them off. That's why I need some.
Okay, we'll sell you.
Definitely
We'll sell you a box. And
Don't
don't
forget,
forget.
be some sales after this show.
Well, I need all you guys to come out here and come see me as well. So, and then the last thing, and not least, gift certificates. I do have $25, $50, and $100 gift certificates for you women that may be watching. We've got. For that lucky husband or boyfriend or whatever that may be in your life. If you don't know what to get a gift certificate. Come get us a gift certificate. Come get them in store. They're redeemable in store only also because I kind of need them back. They're laminated and they're nice. Put a little bit of effort into them. And then the last thing that we want to do is here at about the 1 hour mark, Jennifer from For Her Outdoor Apparel, she's got her first giveaway. Remember the rod and the reel that we gave away? Last time that we did this last month, we're giving away another Lose 7-foot medium heavy bait casting combo. But to answer the question of the week, a woman has to answer the question. And I'm going to be behind the board. So I'm going to be double checking this. So don't worry. Don't be trying to get in there and sneak in on there and be like, oh yeah, my wife just answered this question. No, I want to see a name. I want to see a name, or I want to see, a YouTube handle that's a woman. that's what I want. That's what I want to see. So we'll come up. We're going to have a question of the week. It's going to be striper related. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's going to be a striper related question here.
Yeah. Her phone died. She ain't even got a phone, so she can't even do it.
Oh.
On the way here, she called me from somebody else's number. I didn't answer.
She needs to be getting her phone back on.
I know. Well, she got an iPhone 6. She won't upgrade.
iPhone 6.
Yeah. There's no more security updates for it or anything. I'm like, it's just a time bomb. You got to get a better phone.
iPhone 6.
Yeah.
I was probably like in high school when the iPhone 6 came out.
That was probably like 3 years ago.
You're right. Yeah. I am 31.
Like, I had an S8, and I like the S8, and I was like, man, this thing's old. It came out in 2017. I'm like, it ain't even that old.
I have a 12. Does that count?
Yeah,
no, it's 11. Sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty old.
That was pretty old.
What, the 11? Where are they at now? Like 20?
I don't know.
14.
I really don't know.
iPhone X,
all I know is when they turned on the 14, mine started acting funny.
Oh my Lord! I think that's how the cell phone companies get you to buy another cell phone. Henry, is that how the cell phone companies get you to buy a new cell phone? Is they like after about 2 years they cut them off on you and make the service crap? Is that your opinion on it? Whatever, you
I
text
don't
me.
even use a cell phone. I just scream over to the
Watch
next
them on the
boat.
lake.
I just scream over to the next boat and go, they're over here. But, when you talk about vintage cell phones, Terry's cell phones, he's still fishing Calcutta bamboo rods for stripers on the boat. Vintage
I wish they were a ton of
1875.
money.
You want to talk about shots fired? Or I got more shots fired in your
Yeah, he's gonna fire shots the whole night.
Exactly. Yeah. So listen, I'm fixing to turn this over to Paul. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. Y'all sit back and enjoy this episode. In about the hour mark, give or take, I'm gonna let Paul know we're gonna come up with a question of the week that is striper related, and I need a woman to answer it for this rod. Okay, you have to come up to the store and come get it. I ain't shipping it.
We will not be shipping.
I will not be shipping this rod. So, without further ado, Terry, Alex, Jeremy, Mr. Cowen, Paul's coming in. I'll see you guys later. I'm gonna be behind the board. Paul, here's your book. Here's your pad back. See you guys.
Also known as my partner for the Don Brown tournament this weekend.
Boy, am I glad we got rid of him.
Life got rid of him. Poor guy.
Damn. Tough room for Ryan. Love you, Ryan.
You guys great.
Killed it. Killed it.
Killed a tough break. I only met him one time. I spoke at the Striper Club meeting that one time, and then it was 2 weeks later was when they announced that he had the health condition. And so I never really got that. He gave me a bunch of crap after the meeting. I remember that.
Yeah. Was he? I remember going to one where there was a guy that like measured your rods and was like writing down like the specific like real one. Specs. Yeah.
I think that was the Lanier Striper Club.
That guy's in jail now.
Oh, that guy.
That guy.
Yeah,
that guy.
Listen, you're not allowed to. You can't measure guys' rods. You just can't do it.
Yeah, it's out of bounds. It's out of bounds. So here we are, the Livewell. This episode is actually the brainchild of one of our table members here, Mr. Alex Green. It is for real. We were out fishing in April, and we were talking about the show and kind of how things went, and how we tend to be a little bass heavy. And Alex goes, it would be cool if we found 4 dudes that had different styles of fishing for stripers that were bad dudes, that were hammers, and put them at the same table at the same time.
I like to think I'm a nice guy, Paul. I'm a bad guy.
What would the fish say about you, Terry?
They would say bad things about
Yeah, they would say bad things about you.
They would have nothing nice to say about it.
You put them back.
But the thing is, they live to say it, though. That's it.
You put them back, so there's that. And so that was how this idea was born. Danny's out on the road.
Danny's sick.
Is Danny sick now?
Home. He was here yesterday.
Danny's back. He's sick. He's got the funk.
Josh was here.
He didn't. He's got the don't want to go to work funk. And so we started making some calls, and we gathered up our table, our panel, starting with Mr. Henry Cowen. Henry, tell us a bit about yourself. Not that you need an introduction, but
so I moved down here in 1997, having fished pretty much the entire East Coast from Maine down to New Jersey, which is really the striper run, the saltwater striper run, and moved down here. And we were actually looking to move on to move to the coast, because I'm a coastal guy. I just love coastal fishing, and my day job didn't allow me to move to any place with an airport on the coast, because you'd always have to go through Atlanta. So I just called Uncle and said, well, let's look at Atlanta. And I found out that Atlanta actually had an unbelievable landlocked striper population, but I didn't know much about it. So I actually called the DNR, and I called a guide on Lanier by the name of Captain Mac Farr. And after talking to the DNR and talking to Mac Farr, I realized, you know what? Basically, these guys all said the same thing. I said, can you, I was a fly fishing guy for years up in the Northeast. I said, can you catch them on a popper? And they said, well, absolutely. And they said, well, can you catch them on a bomber when they're like 3 to 5 feet down? And they said, well, of course. And I said, can you catch them on a bucktail jig when they're running deep? And they said, positively. And I just said, okay, I can live here. I can move here because I can do the same thing with a fly. And then, I had the pleasure down here years later to run into Terry and, watch him fish and catch a lot of fish, especially at night. And Alex, who I haven't actually gotten in the boat with, only because, he hasn't invited me for no other reason.
We can rectify that.
But Alex is the big fish guy. And so I'm always following Alex, whether it's on his Instagram page or through one of his secret in-house guys that he's friendly with that he doesn't know, tells me all the information. And then believe it or not,
all of those guys are about to get grilled.
Find them all.
And then Jeremy, who I've never met, doesn't know this, but he's actually one of the 3 or 4 people that I actually look to follow on Facebook to see what they're doing. So it's a pleasure to finally sit at a table with all of you, even Terry. So
I appreciate that.
Wow. Damn, Terry, you must be really good at this.
No, I'm gonna have to tell a story. I've been trying to, when I see busting fish, I've been texting Henry for the last couple of weeks because I think I owe him one. Because Henry used to have one hellaciously good dock light, and me being too friendly with an old retiree actually burned it for both of us. So I feel like I owe Henry one. So maybe we'll tell that story tonight.
Is he paid back up, Henry, or does he still owe you?
No, I still got a ways to go. That was a good light.
It was a good
So
light.
that good.
It's really interesting. There's not a lot, most of my lights, guys will call me up and say, hey, I want to go dock light fishing. I want to hire you to go dock light fishing at night. And Jeremy, I don't know if you dock light fish up by you much, but I can tell you, I have a lot of dock lights on the south end of the lake that I absolutely never fish because I'm up in the Chestatee. But my go-to lights are all in the Chattahoochee, north of Browns Bridge. So when somebody calls me up and says, hey, I want to hire you for a dock light trip, they're going south and fishing all the lights that I never fish.
Yes.
I don't put them on my lights up north. So that's kind of the way I deal with dock
a few for yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have that problem, Henry, because we don't have any docks on Carter's Lake. So if we green light fish, we put a light out off the side of our boat, in which we catch bait like that a lot, and we catch fish like that. Certain times of the year, anyway, the fish will come up under the lights good. But we don't have, there's no docks except for at the marina and the boat ramp. That's it.
Carter's a little different animal.
It's different.
Carter's is an entirely different animal.
I'm really glad you guys brought Jeremy in on this because not only, even though I'm participating in this, I have a bunch of questions because I've always wanted to find out more about Carter's Lake. So I'm really glad that you guys brought him in today.
So I think that's a good kind of, I had all of you do a little bit of homework and try to give us some basic talking points. And I think I'll start with one of Henry's, which is just kind of how the forage base affects the fishery. And for you guys, because of your different kind of the techniques that you like to lean on, like you're all imitating, I would say probably different forage at different times.
Mm-hmm.
And so
matching the hatch, man.
Matching the hatch. It's all circles back to fly fishing and Henry. So Henry, we'll start with you kind of, is there a specific forage that you're like looking for the fish to switch onto or that you're looking to imitate? Or do you kind of try to follow the patterns of the season?
I think it's a combination of both. For me, on Lanier, while a lot of the, and especially sitting at this table, we got Alex, who's a big fish guy. And I don't mean that derogatory. I mean, this guy is looking for wall hangers and fish of a lifetime. So I'm actually interested to hear what he thinks about that, because the bait that I'm accustomed to for my fly anglers, it's usually the threadfin shad, and the smaller the threadfin, the better it is for my customer to catch fish, because then we can be sitting in the back of a creek or out on the open lake with a bunch of other guys trolling, trolling live bait or throwing artificials. And when they're on that itty bitty bait, it's very hard for those guys to catch fish, where the fly angler actually has a big advantage because we can match that hatch at 2 inches. Conversely, when those fish are in the spring and they're on the gizzard shad, I can tell you that Alex can come out and smoke those fish on an artificial. And I'm sitting there trying to get my customer to swing a 10-inch fly, and he's looking at me like I need to take a break after 10 minutes of casting. So, certainly the forage has a lot to do with what we're throwing and the types of seasons. So on Lanier, it's herring, it's threadfin, and it's gizzards. And not to say that you wouldn't come to Lanier with a live trout and troll it behind the boat. And that's what a lot of the guides kind of do in the winter when they're on that itty bitty bait, is they throw something just horrendously big at those fish. I don't mean to mess with a competitor, but I used to go into Hammond's that sold live bait, and I used to bring my fly rod in there and throw dry flies in his trout tank just to see if I could get one to eat. It's kind of funky to do that. But, so for us, the small baits is really where my fishery shines. And by the way, I don't want anybody to think I will pick up a bait caster, just as quick as I'll pick up a fly rod. Come April, when those fish are eating red fins off the top, you won't even see me with a fly rod out in the boat. I'll have a bait caster loaded up with a Shimano reel, Jeremy, and that I'll be throwing red fins till the cows come home. So, but that's my experience with the bait.
Fun bite when we have it. That's that redfin bite is one of my favorites.
It's wicked.
Like, for sure.
It's wicked.
Redfin for spotted bass.
Redfin for big fish, dude.
Yeah.
Stripers or spots, dude. They'll smoke them.
But while we're talking about redfins and big fish, and we got Alex here. Alex, talk to us about glide baits and why they move more fish in a river system than, say, even a redfin does. What's up with that?
There's 2 answers to that question. So, as our mutual friend is probably related to you, we had that bite to ourselves for like 3 years, and they just hadn't seen it. So, that was one thing. Like that, 2.5 good years after I kind of figured that out, that was like special. You got to see that kind of drop off this year as a lot of people kind of started understanding that bite a little bit more, and it got out more, so they don't react to it quite the same way. But I mean, in reality, I think it's just a way to present a much larger profile to them in a lateral fashion. Like they just, like when you watch like spots or stripers, I kind of view them and how they attack a bait like in a very similar fashion. They really like to feed laterally, and they use the surface against a bait fish because it forces that bait fish to change direction. And there's nothing else as far as a presentation that you can get in like the 8, 10, 12, 14-inch size class that's actually going to have control and be able to really dart side to side and like provide that triggering mechanism. It's like you can throw, a 10, 12-inch fluke or something, and they're going to eat it, but it can't cut like a bait fish that is really trying to get away. Like you watch them sit there and chase a 10-inch shad in a figure 8 for like 20 minutes. Yeah. And that shad is just darting side to side, and it just pisses them off. Like, if you can take something away from them, they're going to eat it.
Guys have been doing that and using those baits in Northern California for years. And it's starting to make its way over east. But I kind of feel like, at least here in the Southeast, you're the guy that's kind of dialed into that as good as anybody I know. And like I said, I have a pretty wide, swath of people that I talk to that are not just fly anglers. And so I just think that's incredibly interesting with that type of bait, you know. Now, if you want to scare everybody, tell them what is a glide bait? Give me a low price and a high price for a glide bait.
I mean, a very serviceable bait like a Papa Pete or a Sneaky Pete that, I mean, I've caught big fish on. I've seen 40, 50 pounders caught on them, you know, $30 to $50. Some of like my favorite.
Hold on to your chairs right now.
I mean, like my like personal 4 or 5 like really heavy hitter baits, you couldn't pry from my cold dead hands for 20 grand. I mean, you couldn't. But
there are makers out there, right?
If you're making yourself, or if you wanted them produced, like what would it cost at retail?
You couldn't replicate them. No, because they're all ones like I've prototyped and like I've had a hand in waiting, and you know, so they're individual. But I mean, the wheelhouse of like custom garage built baits, like $150, $250.
It's unbelievable.
About 300 is what I see them go for.
I'll be honest, like I think the S waiver is the gateway. Like I've caught fish on an S waiver.
I think, like, you know, as opposed
they'll eat it.
The first things that we started getting around here was like the bull shad and Mike Buka bull shad, the big
jointed
ones.
Yeah.
But the glide baits have a different action. You know, the bull shad is a straight line. You can't really get it to dart and take off.
Yeah.
And
the glide bait seems to make them curious in a way that, like, you get a lot of fish to follow a glider, and sometimes they're really aggressive. They're lit up like that fish is going to eat. Like, I see a lot of times, like, their fins are out. Like, they're just kind of, it's the look. They're checking it out. Like, what is that? And sometimes you can impart the action you need to fire that fish up and get him to fire. And sometimes, and it's the thing that frustrates the people most about the big bait game, is sometimes that fish isn't going to fire.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, he looks at it and he's like, yeah, it looks like food, but I don't want to mess with it. And that fish goes his own way,
just
wherever he's going to go.
Look at them on a sonar when they come up and eyeball your down lines, you know, when live bait fish. You'll have 30 fish come up and eyeball your bait and won't touch it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a perfect, beautiful herring on a light leader, fluorocarbon, everything's pristine. And they just look at it.
He's just not about it.
Yep.
No.
Like, so, not today.
Not today. So,
and then sometimes I think they actually come up and smack a lure with their mouths shut, because, you know, you'll see them come up and just bump a lure. They'll just come up and nose it, you know?
I saw one literally roll in a seagull feather one time in 50 feet of water. Came up right next to the kayak, and that was the only thing there.
One night,
like,
Bill Carson and I were...
it's incredible, like, what they'll pick out and decide to attack.
We were both fishing back in Flat Creek, and we were both in the same area in Flat Creek. This is when I still had my John boat. I'm fishing, and Bill is on the other side. We're fishing the shoal marker back in Flat Creek, and there's a bottle floating, just a glass bottle. And for whatever reason, we both had our eyes on that general spot, and a striper cracked on that bottle so hard. I mean, like, literally exploded on that glass bottle.
Nice.
And it was like, it wasn't even moving. It was just sitting, just not even moving.
Just doing nothing.
But I'm getting follows on bombers back and forth to the boat. Like, you'll hit a bottle, but you won't hit my bomber.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeremy, do you have? I was curious, Jeremy. Do you have top water bite on Carters, where you don't have to troll live bait? Do you have an artificial bite up there where they come up and start crashing or stuff like that?
It's very seasonal, Henry. Probably March and April at night. That's going to be your best time to go out with what y'all are talking about, the red fins, bombers, F-18, stuff like that. You can catch them at night, but Carter's it's such a clear lake. It's a very hard lake to fish with artificial. It's hard to trick them. It's hard to catch them on live bait sometimes. But March and April at nighttime, around the full moon, that's the time you want to be out there casting on the bank, Rocky Point, stuff like that. You can definitely catch it.
I've actually, one of my YouTube videos is a Carter's Lake night fishing with bombers.
Yep.
But the thing about Carter's Lake, it's feast or famine. I was there one night and they were blowing up everywhere. It reminded me of Lanier from back in like 2010. And I was like, yeah. I called, well, my boss, I hope he's not listening to this, but I laid out of work the next day because I'm like, I want to get that again. I'm going to be out there again. So I went back 24 hours later. Well, not even 24 hours later. And it was dead. Yeah. I mean, there was no fish blowing up, nothing. Carter's is just
It's on and off, man.
You know, and the guys that guide on it, my hat's off to you. You guys know what you're doing.
Well, I
Jeremy,
mean,
what bait fish? What are you trolling most of the time on Carters to get those fish? What's the bait of choice?
I mean, honestly, I mean, I love to fish with gizzard shad. That's what I started out doing, but that's very seasonal too. You know, spring and fall, when the water temp's just right, seems like you can get them to hit those big shad. But I'd say 75-80% of the time it's those LYs. The LY herring is what they primarily feed on. Seems like. So
See, I got a lot of flack too. The Alois, they come up and spawn earlier in the season than bluebacks do, don't they?
I mean, I've seen them spawn in March. I've seen them spawn in April. It just really depends on the weather.
Yeah, because I made a post when we were actually here on that one podcast, the first one. I said that there were herring up spawning, and a bunch of people jumped all over me. Like, there's no herring spawning yet, and I'm like, I wanted to say it, but I'm like, it's not the herring.
It normally happens at Carter's before it happens at Lanier. Yeah. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah, those herring were definitely up there spawning, and those are the Alois, and everybody's. But I didn't want to give away the bite that I was fishing, so.
Yeah. Do you think that has to do with depth?
Or maybe just a different species. Maybe they're just geared different. Because I know Alois up north are usually in the colder lakes. Like we have Alois up in New Jersey, and the
Great Lakes are cold.
They seem to be more cold tolerant than the bluebacks and threadfins and whatnot. So maybe they're just different seasonal fish.
Yeah. You know? They can put up with the cold. They don't do well with like temp changes.
Yeah.
Like they're really persnickety about that.
Yeah. I have fished Carter's.
I heard Altoona now has alewives in it. That's what
that's what I'm hearing too.
That's the rumor.
Robert Edson from First Bite was telling me they got alewives in there now in a big way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't remember what year it was, but I remember fishing Carter's before the alewives, and it was gizzards and threadfin. That's all you needed. Yeah. And the fishing was so much easier. Once you found them, they would stay there for a pretty good while most of the time. Now it's like one day they're here, next day they're somewhere completely different. I mean, the alewives have completely changed our lake. We don't fish it anything like we used to fish it when I first started.
This is like Lanier, man. Like I remember pre-herring Lanier.
Yeah.
I remember that gap in 2015-16 when the herring stocks crashed. Everything changed for those couple of years.
Was it 2017 was like the year, or 2017 was the year of the threadfin.
Yeah.
Remember, you couldn't get minnows at any of the bait shops. It was all you could do was I murdered him. Like I caught so many fish.
I murdered him. He said.
Like no, I'm not gonna lie, dude. I caught so many fish on just like minnows and flatlines. And if you could find a couple of ditches where they were in and out on time, and just be there when they were there, you could profit greatly.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question. Hey, Alex, do you have do you find threadfin in any of the river systems that you're fishing, or is it almost solely gizzards and whatever else is living in those river systems?
In the state of Georgia, I would say the rivers I fish are very devoid of shad. Like there's almost none. Like you'll never. That's why topwater doesn't work very well in the rivers. Like they don't. There's no shad.
They don't feed up.
There's no shad. Like up in the other areas we fish, you can roll into a creek mouth, catch 10-inch shad in about 5 minutes and go have a blast, if you're tired of casting. But we were actually talking about this earlier, Ryan and I. In our river systems, I find them spitting up crawfish more than anything else.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
That's big juice there, dude.
If you want to go fish for those jokers with a jig on a 7-foot medium heavy, you can have at it. You can have at it.
I might try it. Like,
I've tried the crankbait thing. It doesn't work too good. It don't work too good. I think it overstimulates their lateral line, personally.
Like they're just not about it, or they don't. Like it just shuts them down. They feel like it's not real, or.
All I'm saying is just it doesn't work for me.
It doesn't. It doesn't happen.
I've caught stripers on spinner based jigs. I've never caught a striper on a crankbait.
Okay, it's not just me.
I've never had. I know some people have, but I've
caught them. I've caught them pulling like shad wraps and stuff, like early spring.
Well, yeah, shad wraps, but
shad wraps are little like walleye crankbaits.
Do you guys know what the Do you guys know what the record striper on Lanier was caught on?
A green lizard.
Yeah,
I heard it was a black lizard.
lizard.
On a bass Bill Dance Walmart combo from a guy from Michigan who was here for his daughter's
47
wedding.
plus pounds on a
Hurts
green
my soul.
lizard.
We have a question.
I remember the big joke was there was a run on blue lizards at Walmart right after that.
Are the alewives pretty? Kurt Wehunt, are the alewives pretty nettable this time of year? Who among you net their own bait?
Yeah, they're nettable, but it's if you want to freeze to death trying to catch them, that's the tough part this time of year.
I see you guys show up at 4 a.m. to turn
Yeah, I mean, if it's below freezing, man, it's tough. I mean, you got your boat's iced up, your net's iced up. I've done it, and it's almost
the net in the boat and making
honestly,
it worse.
This time of the year, a 6-inch trout, if you're on fish that are feeding, they'll work just as good as a 6-inch herring. Shiners, which I'm sure y'all have seen the same thing at Lanier with when they're on the thread fins and the small baits, a shiner. I mean, if you're on the fish and they're biting, we do other things this time of year besides the alewives, but to try to imitate that same size and that kind of thing. But I don't throw the net much this time of year when it's as cold as it is, but
I've just got a little lazy. I try not to throw it.
Yeah, I don't mind doing it if it's above freezing. If it's above freezing, so
I don't like to have to work. If I know I can throw the net and fill the tank and a few throws, I'm good. But if I got to work, it's a different story.
You know what I would say to that, Kurt? I wouldn't throw the net. I'd let Lori throw the net.
Yeah.
Oh,
throw the net.
All the more reason.
Yeah.
Now, before we get off the bait, I got a quick question for you. Have the blueback showed up in Carter's?
I'm sure there's probably some there because I know people slipped up there and fished with them, but I haven't really seen signs.
I know the only way to tell is like you got to cut them open, and one has a black gut pocket and one doesn't. I think it's the only way to identify the difference.
If you see them enough, you can tell. You can tell the difference.
Because I was looking for information on whether, because some people say they're established there, and then some people say they're not, and then there's no regulations. Like I was looking for regulations on it. It was hard to find. I'm like, I'm surprised people aren't.
I was told a long time ago that it was illegal to net the alewives, but
really,
that's what I was told a long time ago. You're supposed to catch them on a sabiki rig, but we've been throwing the net up there for years, catching thread fins, and they just started mixing in with them, And I mean, the DNR, they know they're there, they know we're doing it, so.
When I'm coming back in the morning, there's 5-6 boats out there at Doll Mountain just throwing, you know.
But to answer his, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know for a fact that, and this is the truth. I know for a fact that Terry's taking those alewives and putting them on a Caesar salad instead of anchovy.
I had an anchovy once when I was 5. It jumped on I guess they were making an anchovy pizza next to ours up there in Jersey, and I bit into that thing. I didn't eat pizza for 6 years after that.
That's a traumatic experience.
An unexpected anchovy? Yeah, that is a traumatic experience at 5 years old.
But
unexpected.
To answer his question about the alewives, it's summertime when it's real hot, it's hard to get them to come up to the light.
Yeah.
Wintertime when it's real cold, it's hard to get them to come up. It's not impossible, but you may sit there 30, 45 minutes to an hour before you get enough bait up to even do anything with. So that's why I just don't mess with it this time of year. I turn to alternative things. But when March, April gets here and it starts warming up, water gets back up in the 60s, we'll start throwing the net again. So, I've never caught alewives during the daytime. It's always been a night thing under the light. Yeah.
That's when we fish the Great Lakes. It's like they come up at night and then they go back.
Yeah, they stay deep.
They don't like the light,
and that's why it's changed our lakes so much. I mean, wintertime we used to go up there and free line trout and stuff like that and catch them. That doesn't happen a whole lot anymore. You might pick up a few fish shallow early, but when the sun comes up, them fish are deep when I feel like they should be shallow based on the time of year, the water temperature, but they're not. They'll be 50, 60 foot deep. We'll be catching fish on downlines.
Where my Lanier tactics didn't apply when the sun was coming up. Once that sun comes up at Carter's, those bait move deep and everything just flip flops.
Done. Yep. We got a question in the comments for Henry. Henry, can you, really probably just run us through your kind of bread and butter setup, but can you tell us about your leader length with your sinking lines? And I'd be interested to know if you use like an intermediate or a full sink or just kind of what your general setup is, what you would consider to be bread and butter for someone that is an intermediate fly fisher that wants to kind of get started fishing for kind of bigger, tougher fish like a striper.
Yeah, so you need two setups when you're fly fishing for stripers, or for that matter, spotted bass. All right. You need to have two rods. You need an 8-weight would be the right size rod. You could go with a 7, you could go with a 9. An 8-weight is my go-to rod. And then you need a slow sinking intermediate line. That's a line that when you throw, so for those guys that don't fly fish, let me quickly tell you, the lines that we use is what determines what depth our fly is going to be at. We have floating lines that stay on the surface. We have what we call slow sinking intermediate lines, which go anywhere. They sink 1 to 1.5 inches per second. So we can get that fly down anywhere from 1 to 3 feet. And then we have fast sinking lines that sink 6 inches to 7 inches per second. So every 2 seconds, it gets down 1 foot. So if I see fish at 20 feet, I can make a cast off the back of the boat, count to 40, and I know that my fly is now in the 20-foot range. So that's the line setups we use. You need to go with a slow sinking intermediate and a fast sinking line. You need to have 2 rods in the boat. For a fast sinking line, I just use a straight 5-foot section of either 16 or 20-pound tippet. I personally like fluorocarbon, but that's a battle for another day, whether you believe in fluorocarbon or not. But just a 5-foot piece of 16 or 20. If I'm fishing over trees, absolutely 20. If I'm fishing over a sandy bottom, then absolutely 16. For a slow sinking intermediate, you want to use like a 7-foot long leader that's tapered. So basically, where the leader is coming off your fly line, it's probably going to be 40 or 30 pound test. And then as you go towards the tip of the line where your fly is attached, it gets down to about 16 to 20 pound test. And again, that's what we call a tapered leader. And the reason we want a tapered leader is it helps turn the fly over so that it lands properly on the water and not in just one gigantic big bunch. When we're fishing a fast sinking line, we don't care that it lands in a bunch because we're looking to get down 5, 10, 15, 20 feet. So that's my leader setup for intermediates and sinking lines.
So could you make like just a basic rod and reel recommendation, just brands to look at, just in an accessible price range, or is it kind of much better to go kind of buy your second
listen,
one first?
It's like asking somebody, what golf clubs should I buy? Well, is your
Also
budget $300 or is your budget $2,000? And fly rods and reels are the same way. If you want a high-end fly rod, you look at companies like Orvis, you look at Sage, you look at Scott. Those are 3 really good top-notch, or what Jeremy and I would call Shimano type companies. So that's the king of the king. And then if you want to go a little more affordable, while those companies also sell more affordable rods, companies like Temple Fork Outfitters, TFO, or Reddington or Echo make very nice, and even Orvis does make some nice opening price point rods that can go. And just to give you an idea what I'm talking about, a high-end top-of-the-line rod is like buying a Loomis rod. You're going to spend, I'm assuming, and you guys know better than me, Alex, how much is a good Loomis rod these days? Is it $400 or $500?
Yeah, you can spend anywhere between like $300 and $500.
Okay, so a top-of-the-line fly rod, you're going to spend between $800 and $1,000. And if you want to go a little less expensive, like in that TFO range or that Echo range, you're going to be spending anywhere from $200 to $400. And then reels, same thing. You can buy a $200 reel, a $150 reel, or you can go buy yourself a $600 Able or a T-Bore or something like that. I will tell you, the key to finding a fly rod outfit is to go and pick out your budget first of how much you want to spend and put as much money as you can into the fly line. The fly line is everything. You buy $100 fly line. You don't worry about what the rod and the reel cost. If you go and try and cheap out on a fly line, you could take that $800,000 Orvis rod and put a $60 or a $40 fly line on it, and it's going to cast like crap. But if you buy $100 top of the line fly line, I can put that on a TFO $300 rod, and it's going to cast like a dream. So it's all about the fly line first.
So that's what I dabble fly fishing. I'm not going to pretend to be good at it.
Yeah, I've been shopping around online since I've been reading this book.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. Like I got my friend a Sage from OBT, and it was I think it was $762 was what it retailed for.
Yeah,
and I put the fly thing aside for the time being. I don't have $762.
I mean, there's a lot of, especially like in the different price points. It's not far off from bass fishing where there's a lot of preferences. Like that's the thing I've noticed. Is it different rods? Like if it works well for one person, it might not like feel right for someone else.
It's true. I'll tell you something else. Again, there's two ways to buy rods. You go to a shop that carries rods, which are bait and tackle shop or a fly shop, and you cast their rods. I would not recommend you buying rods online. I'd recommend you supporting your local retailer first and foremost, always. But the other way to do it on a budget, there are a lot of secondary market rods and reels available. There's a lot of places where you can go online and somebody bought an $800 Terry fly rod from Sage, and they owned it for 3 years, and now the newest model is out, and the newer one is $975, and they're sucked into, I got to have the newest, latest, and greatest. And that $800 rod that you bought 3 years ago is now $400 online.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been buying all just 2 weeks ago. I bought a Quantum Smoke S3, new top of the line, $189. Guy used it once. I got it for $80. So I buy all my stuff secondhand now.
I'll tell you what. I'm Terry. I'm like you. I'm cheap. I go into the river after I hear Alex is fishing, and I look to find all those glide baits that are stuck on the trees for free. This way, it doesn't cost me $175.
I can see that with the Ranger with a ladder.
I can pull the tree down with my leader.
A big A-frame ladder.
I think that might be a good thing to go in, like, just kind of like Terry. When you are out there and you're doing what you want to do, like what are you throwing? And kind of what's that setup look like? My ideal picture perfect everything. Well, we're gonna back up to when Linear still had big 30 and 40 pound fish. Okay, so we're in the DeLorean. That's a good start. We're going back to 2012. The would be February, shad kill, heavy shad kill. Like the pit of winter. Water temperature 42, 43, dead shad everywhere. Bait guys complaining, can't catch a striper on live bait, and I'm out there. 15-pound fluorocarbon leader, fluke, 7-foot St. Croix Legend Tournament Series, or a Mojo Bass, Quantum Smoke reel, 20-pound braid, and a fluke and a jig head, and that's it. And sky's the limit. 40, 50, 60 fish, in 4 or 5 hours, one after another, and then I'm leaving at 5, 6 in the morning when everybody's heading out, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, looking for the bite that's dying. Yeah, that's my ideal. That's heaven. That's wild. Yeah. So I think like what you just described there, and you said it, like essentially worst conditions imaginable.
That's a common theme.
Cold.
Like they like that.
Yeah, they do.
Well, that's what we were saying earlier. Shimano. I like Shimano reels. It's just the thing with Shimano. There's underneath the bail, that roller bearing on the bail arm, there's a little bump that Shimano has where it gets real close, and it's to help guide the line back up to the bail bearing. Mm-hmm. But in the dead of winter, when everything's freezing, that little bump just locks up with ice really quick. I tried using Stratic several times. One Shimano I actually bought, and I just filed it down. But I'm like, I don't want to buy $300 reels and take a file to it, But and for me, I need smooth drags, and that's one of the reasons why I like the high-end Quantum reels. They have the ceramic drags, and they don't get like I've got some Quantum Smokes probably got 1,000 stripers on them now, and those drags are still as smooth as they were the day I bought them. The rest of the reel's starting to get clunky and floppy, but the drag's still top. The drag's still holding up. Yeah.
Now, were you fishing lights primarily back then, or did you have?
I abhorred fishing lights back then. I do it now because it's
Slumming
low hanging fruit, and I don't.
Slumming it.
I'm not fishing 6 days a week like I used to. You know, I got that thing. You know that.
She's been good for you.
Yeah, she has been. She's been really good. There's no complaints there. But yeah, I didn't fish lights back then. I fished. You know, when the dead of winter, when things are really, really bad, I fish east facing west side clay banks, because those are the banks that the sun would heat up 1 or 2 degrees during the day, and all the shad pull up on that bank at night and, you know, try to survive another day, and the stripers know they're there and they just come up and vacuum them up all night. And, you know, if you've ever, like, well, you've seen a threadfin at top speed, a threadfin is what, 0.2 miles an hour, 0.3 miles an hour across the surface. I mean, they're giving it everything they got and they're barely moving, you know. And in the wintertime when things are really slow, they move and then they just glide, and then they flick and then they glide. And the stripers, like whenever I had people fishing with me, you never came with me, did you?
No, we've never fished together.
I know we've
Saturday,
talked about it.
Saturday is going to be the first time we're in the same.
I know we're
going to
be fishing bait, the oddball thing of everything. But yeah, I call it dumb fishing. You just cast and you reel, and if you're not ticking bottom every 10, 20 seconds, you're not reeling slow enough. And people would always ask me, well, how slow is slow? And I tell them, if you think you're reeling too slow, you probably got to slow it down some more.
Do less.
I don't know what you're talking about. I went with Terry, and all I know is I got in the boat with him, and there was like 200 jugs with lines on them. He had me out jug fishing all night.
Stripers. Could you imagine trying to chase down jugs with stripers on them?
I can't imagine chasing down jugs with a serious...
Chasing down drugs?
Wait, whoa.
What? Huh?
Well, we're up at Belton now.
Belton Bridge.
Oh, is it? Whatever. It's
Same
Belton.
difference.
I mean, it's hard enough to chase them down. You got a serious flathead on the other
where
end.
They dumped the bodies. Remember back when I first moved down here, they were finding bodies there pretty regularly back then.
You know, I'm going to tell you something that's kind of different. Serious, since you're talking about live bait fishing, I don't do much of it. I'm not interested in much of it anymore because I did some back when I was living in New York. I did enough live bait fishing, caught enough big fish. But I'm curious, Jeremy, do you pitch your baits like on Lanier? One of the things I notice guys doing more of these days is spinning rods with light line, a small 1/0 hook, a little herring, and they're just pitching that free line herring out into, off a point or whatnot. Now that to me would be absolutely a blast. I can only imagine you're feeling the whole hit and everything. Do you do that up at Carter's?
Yeah, we do it all the time. Especially certain times of the year. I mean, there's times when you need to be, when the fish are moving and scattered, probably need to be pulling planer boards and stuff like that. But, sometimes you can set on those main lake points or secondary points and just pitch. And sometimes you'll catch spotted bass, hybrid, stripers, everything, walleye, everything, pitching bait. So we do that a lot. Do it a lot.
Terry, have you done that on Lanier? Because I've not done it, but I've spoken to a number of guides that, like, Ron Mullins and Mac and those guys love to pitch herring on Lanier. And to me, it just sounds like a lot of fun.
I have not. I'm still, when I'm pulling live bait, I'm just doing boards and the basics, just sitting and relaxing. When I'm pulling bait, I'm just out there trying to relax, But at night, I've never pitched herring before.
Yeah.
I've always, I just stuck to the lures because trying to tend to bait and all that stuff, I might not get as many under a light with a fluke as a guy does with a herring, but I'm pretty close, so.
Well, I'd ask Alex that same question, but he won't tell me the truth if he's fishing the Chattahoochee about whether he's pitching live bait. I know I'm going to get a no on that one right off the bat.
Not down there. Not down there. We have too much.
Do you see a lot of live bait guys down there still? Because I know that was a problem.
Unfortunately, yes. We did open up a pretty good relationship with one of the law enforcement guys down there, and a lot of people had been complaining about it. And personally, I don't call on someone if I see them floating a bait. I will call on them if I see them keeping fish. So I've called on 2 people the last couple of years, and it seemed like that word kind of got out among the community of people that was keeping fish and did not see much of it this past summer.
So you're not supposed to use live bait.
Mm-mm.
Oh, where's that now?
Downtown.
Yeah.
Okay, the lower.
Yeah, below Morgan Falls, right? There's no live bait fishing below Morgan Falls.
Really?
Which,
I
I mean,
didn't know
it's
that.
kind of stupid to me. It's because it's a trout designation.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if I'm being forthright, like, it's nice to not have to compete against live bait in that environment. But, like, it's striper fishing. Like, I don't really see how, if it's a striper fishery, which is what it is, I mean, aside from the DH, like, I don't really see how
You mean the feeding
you can
season?
reasonably exclude live bait from that.
So let me ask you this. There's talk from the Department of Natural Resources going forward that they are going to take the DH section below Morgan Falls Dam and move it to Island Ford above Morgan Falls Dam, which means that section below Morgan Falls is not going to see trout anymore. Will that be good for your fishery, or will that be bad for your fishery?
I think it's really pretty inconsequential just with the numbers of fish they put in there. I mean, what I'm more concerned about with that fishery is what I've seen the temps do the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's just been like a steady climb up. And with all the development and all the siltation that's really happening in the watershed, I mean, the last 2 years were marginal. Like marginal. There were a lot of days that like I chose not to fish. Just watching the temps, and like weeks that were out. Like, I'm not going to go fish for these things if it's 72 and rising.
So is that why you're going now, making those long trips to Alabama? Wink, wink.
I mean, that's part of it. That is part of it for sure. I mean, our mutual friend and I have definitely like broken down that fishery as far as you can break it down, and I think it's past its peak. Personally, I think like peak was 21 when we had like the last good combination of like cooler water. The stocking numbers from like 6 or 7 years ago were astronomically high. They cut that down by like 75% in West Point because the Billy Bass boys said the striper were eating all their largemouth, so they stopped stocking them. And they don't have the incentive. I don't feel like
make up less than a percent of their overall diet.
Now hold on. Don't be talking funny about our bass guys. I just want you to know, as a guide on Lake Lanier, I love me some green fish. It has saved many of my day. I just want you to know.
Well, I love bass fishing. I still bass fish. You never know what. I might even go carp fishing tomorrow. You just never know.
That's the only time I've ever called. Terry, I want you to know that's the only time I've ever called the DNR on somebody. Is down on Bull Sluice carp fishing. I had to call the DNR because they came out. They were in an old center console and they were bow hunting for carp. And that's national parks. You cannot bow hunt down in that. You can bow hunt just about any lake in North Georgia, but you cannot bow hunt below Morgan Falls Dam. That is all National Park Service. I mean, above Morgan Falls Dam.
In Bull.
I remember that was
there's a lot of carp in that piece of water too.
Was the trout don't survive down there, so people, why is it a big deal to use trout in a water where they can't propagate and stay year round? So But I remember there was a big battle over that on the GON.
That's the first thing that's the first thing that blew it up. Was that little GON battle. I mean, that was before I ever fished for him, but I mean.
Yeah, I remember.
I was lead people Lanier at that time. I just thought it was comical.
Well, what's interesting, and that kind of puts light on what Alex was saying. So Rob Smith, who's been fishing the river below Morgan Falls as a striper guide for River Through Atlanta, doesn't really guide anymore down there because he doesn't feel confident enough that he can get his customers enough bites on a fly rod to make it worth taking their money. Very ethical guy, and decided I'm done guiding down there because it's not what it once was.
Oh, it's brutal. Like it is brutal. I've never fished in a place that's more technical and angles based, and it has to be over this rock 6 inches to the left, coming uphill on this flow where it's kicked out to that side. Like it's.
Are y'all talking about Carter's?
Although I hear yours is just as technical.
Yeah,
but
is.
you know,
That's why I said that.
technically, I think the peak overall for striped bass, like quality numbers of big striped bass, was years ago for just about everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't. Tennessee's not the big fish factory that it used to be. Alabama, remember there was Lewis Smith and Martin. They're not producing the giants like they once were. Lanier's it's on the rebound, but I don't think we're ever going to get back to pre-2014.
Dude, that's always the question about Lanier now is like, where's the ceiling going to be?
I think we're going to occasionally see a 30 here and there. But all right, remember 2014. Me and my brother, we lived back in Kurt Wehunt's on here. I used to live back on 4606 Sequoia Circle in the back of Flat Creek. If Kurt lives in that area, he says he lives back there. I figured I'd throw that out there. But anyway, 2014 was the year that everybody and their mother was catching a 40-pounder out of Lake Lanier. Yeah. And I knew that was my window to get one on a lure. Did. But no, it was 2015. But
and the lake was down.
In the coal mine. A lake just doesn't all of a sudden start producing monster fish unless you have a numbers problem. Like what is it? The Chippewa flowage up in Minnesota or no, Wisconsin for muskies. You know, it was a typical fishery, put out 42 to 45-inch muskies, and then all of a sudden there was a few-year window where it was just pumping out big, giant muskies, and then it crashed after that. Mm-hmm. And if a fishery is all of a sudden one day putting out big fish, you have a problem with your stock numbers. You know, that's what it's the canary, you know.
Interesting.
It's like the brown trout on the hooch.
Yeah.
So it's like, so what's happening is like your
smaller
fish are falling away, and so the fish that are remaining,
they're not competing as much.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of that and getting giant.
And that's exactly what's going on the East Coast, on the Atlantic seaboard for stripers. Yeah. Everybody up in the Northeast, you know, nowadays, the last 5 years, catching a fish over 30 pounds is not a big deal. Catching fish 50, 60 pounds happens fairly regularly in the late spring and then again in the early fall. But go and see if you can find fish that are 18 to 22 inches. You'll never find it.
That's what happened on Lanier. You know, we noticed and we brought it up. We were catching fish from, 12 to 14 pounds, and then you seen some 18 to 20s, and then there were 30 and up. But there was no 5s, 6s, and 7s. Those fish were gone. And DNR had explained, they came to the Striper Club meeting and pretty much said our stocking methods weren't very good. That's when they were pulling up and dumping them all at one ramp. And what was happening was for those couple of years, they were getting the brood stock later in the spring than they normally did. So the fry weren't ready to stock until brim and herring and, pretty much fry eating fish were up shallow. And that's what decimated the.
Look at him excited to get here at the striper table.
Striper guy.
I think.
Oh, he has a theory.
I think that their two last holdouts in Georgia for landlocked striper, and that's Carter's. And that's the upper part of the Coosa.
Well, one thing I wanted
that's for what, size or
yes, size wise, yeah. Because I mean, I know Jeremy has mentioned and Mickey have mentioned before that you guys y'all still see some fish in the 15 to 25 pound range on Carter's.
Oh yeah,
15. But y'all don't see them getting much over 30 right now.
Our lake record's 36.
Right.
Yeah, been that way for a while too, hasn't it?
Yeah, and that's
but y'all still have good quality.
We do. I mean, if there's a good class of, or was a good class of 15, 20 pound fish. It seems like that's died off a little bit. We're starting to see more 8 to 12 pound fish than I've probably seen in a long time, which is good. And it's not a bad thing, but there's not as many of those 20 pounders.
Have the gill light showed up on your lake?
Never seen a gill maggot. No, not on Carter.
But I'll tell you this, we were out on Lanier last Friday, and on fly, we put in an hour and a half. We hooked 8 fish. We landed 6. We had 1 10-pounder. Everything else was between 14 and 15.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, we're doing good right now.
Yeah, that's good. The thing I don't understand about Carter's is we get like 11,000 fish a year, which is, it's nothing.
Yeah,
and compared to the amount of bait that we have there, I know how much bait's in that lake because I've dealt with it. You would think there would be 50-pound stripers in there.
Monsters.
But they're not. And I've never been able to figure that out.
Is it bait size, you think? They just don't have that next?
I can tell you this. I have caught L-wise 12 inches long. So
no.
no. And I mean, there used to be a good population of dollar bill size gizzard shad in there.
Yeah.
And we had a bad shad kill one year, dead shad floating everywhere, that kind of thing, like you was talking about. And ever since, the gizzards have never come back. Now, I don't know if that has something to do with the LYs taking over. I don't know. But the bait is that there's plenty of bait for them there. Why do they seem to top out around 20, 25 pounds?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The gizzard population here is exploding.
Yeah,
It is exploding on Lanier.
Yeah.
It's just It's
There's a lot of bait on Lanier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
You got herring, you got gizzards now. You even have there are even trout still in the lake.
There's some running around.
A lot of striper guys that fish with trout, they actually are throwing them back even though they're not supposed to.
Oh yeah.
Because why else are they around Thompson Creek?
Well, the lake record rainbow got broken a couple years ago.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was a
it?
10-pound fish. That was a slug.
So
dude.
I have a question for the round table, which I think the audience would love to hear. I'd love to go around and you guys tell me river fishing, bait fishing on Carter's, Terry fishing with his jugs and everything else he does, being Mr. Versatility. What's the best conditions weather-wise? When is it that you, as a guy who wants to go striper fishing, what's the must-go weather conditions for you guys?
For me, first week in March.
No, weather conditions.
Whatever weather is the first week of March. Whatever is doing that day. For me, the slight mist, rain, overcast with about 5-mile-an-hour winds out of the west. But yeah, misty, overcast, foggy. I don't know. It just seems like sloppy. Those kind of foggy, misty with a slight chop. That seems to be like the big fish. Those are the days when I know my chance at a big fish is best.
Alex, what do you like on the river versus, let's say, when you're fishing Lanier? Is there a difference between the weather you like?
I would say with the systems that I fish, it is more man's influence rather than the weather. Like everything y'all are saying, and we're going to talk about, terrible conditions, overcast skies, rainy days, that is certainly like in your favor. But I want to know what that operator up at the dam at the hotline is doing. Like that dictates it all.
Water.
That's it.
That's the
and
guy.
You've got to find, obviously it's not just like on off. They're tidal fish, right? So like you're operating in a tidal system in these rivers.
Yeah.
There's a very finite window that you can chase, up and down a system, or if you know exactly what they're doing. Like best time to fish the hooch downtown, in my opinion, is about 10:30 on a Tuesday morning. Why? I'll leave that for people to figure out. But I mean, there's a very specific thing that happens,
Well, Alex, I'll have you know, my brother-in-law actually runs the dam at Morgan Falls. He's the timekeeper.
Oh.
But since you're not going to tell everybody why 10:30, I'm not giving you his phone number.
Dang it.
What about you, Jeremy?
I would say mine's probably a combination of what both of you guys said. I mean, the generation schedule definitely affects Carter's Lake. It's a small lake. You got the powerhouse and everything. It's set up to where they can back pump water. The back pump really screws our fishing up big time. If they're back pumping, I don't want to fish. I want them to be either letting water out, or it's better if they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, probably for, if the fish are shallow, I'd say the cloudy, overcast, misty days seem like better for me. Summertime, when the fish are deep, the sun will come out, fish will start biting. But, we might be catching them, 50, 60, 70, 80 foot deep. So I think it depends on the time of year, what kind of weather conditions seem to work best. Like when the fish are shallow, I don't want the sun to come out.
Conditions at Carter's can fluctuate.
It can change
you could walk
hourly
at night and the lake will be down 1.5 feet, 2 foot by the time you're done fishing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And things will be totally different.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
The one thing I was told, now, is this true? Does Carter's get a thermocline or no?
I've never seen signs of it.
So does that keep your stripers shallower in the summertime, or are they generally staying deep?
Yeah, I mean, they can be shallower than what you would probably think at times. But, typically they're going to go where that bait's at.
But
and,
I mean, you're putting boards away and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Most of the time in the summertime, kind of goes back to what we was talking about pitching baits. I'll set off a point in deeper water and I'll downline.
Yeah.
Because there'll be fish deep, but there will be fish that'll go up on those points shallower and feed, and that's when I'm pitching baits behind the boat. So I'm fishing deep, and I've got
trying to kind of ambush them coming in, going.
Yeah, they're not going to stay up there shallow, but they will push that bait up there shallow, and then they'll move right back out to the deep water. I've seen it where my pitch rods are getting hit, and all of a sudden they quit that, and then my down rods start going down. So there can be several different things going on at the same time because you got these points there that they're like this, and they will push that bait up in there. And, I've caught them in, 20, 30 foot of water in the summertime there, which that's shallow for carters. You're up on a point, you're on the side of a point or something. So,
yeah, when you're striper, they behave a little differently in the summer now too. They don't stay as deep as they used to in the summer.
Yeah, I think, early summer, June, I've caught fish on free lines, or a weighted free line.
I think it's all water quality at that time. Yeah. What you said, though, that's very interesting to me. So you hate the pump back, and yet I've got buddies on Oconee that pray for the pump back, which I find so interesting. That here we are on the east side of town, and they want the pump back, and the guys on the west side of town are like, no more pump back. So
yeah, maybe it has something to do. That water that goes out of Carter's goes into the reservoir, the re-reg. Maybe it's something to do with the way that water does when it's in the re-reg and then it's pumped back into the lake. I don't know, but it's almost like
they're pumping warm water.
I have compared it to like the tides turning in salt water.
Yeah.
It seems like when it's one way it's on and when it's the other way it's not. And that's just how it seemed for me. It may be different for somebody else, but that's how it seems like.
I have another question. I'm sorry, I'm kind of asking a gazillion questions, but I'm just curious. Any of you guys on your boats running like the Mega Live or Live Scope or any of that stuff? Anybody here running it?
I'm
Ryan's
not, but I have been
hand
talking to a lot of guys in the clubs that are starting to use it, and they're starting to find ways to apply it to striper fishing. Yeah. And I was talking to a gentleman, I don't know if he wants his name mentioned, but he was using it for spoons. He's seen the stripers down near the bottom and couldn't get him to bite live bait, so he brought out the spoon and started jigging on them like we do in midwinter. And he was picking them up on the live and just picking them off one by one with the jig. Or
Alex, you have Live Scope on your boat?
I don't, but my primary fishing partner does, and there's some really cool stuff you can do with it. Really cool.
So
Alex, I'd love to hear more about that if you guys don't mind. I'd really like to learn more. Can you expand upon that a little for everybody?
I would say I feel really, really stupid when I go out on the lake in my boat now, because you can just
you have so
see
little information
where everything is. It's almost like, aside from finding the fish and finding the bait, you have to know where they would be. It doesn't get rid of, the burden of actually having a clue what the fish are doing, but you get so much more feedback in terms of how they're reacting to your presentations once you find them. So in a river, right, I can see the bottom pretty much all the time. If a fish moves on the bait, I can assess its body language, what lie it came out of, are they on this? Are they on that? How are they reacting to colors? It's very visual feedback, right? And you can make a lot of really educated decisions as a fisherman based upon what you're seeing. And this just gives you the ability to fish like that 30 feet down.
Until that capability came out, the only thing I could use is to watch the posture of the birds on our lakes and see what the gulls are doing and watch them, because for me, that's the clue. The wildlife tells me what the fish are doing, whether they're roaming just under the surface or they're 30 feet deep. The birds give it away. If you ever wanted to make a lot of money, get a seagull to sit in on a poker game with you and you're going to win big, because they give it away. They can't hide anything.
Seagull with money.
We got, before we answer this question from the comments, I have a question for the commenters.
Yeah, I like Danny's comment.
For her apparel question of the week, sponsored by For Her Outdoor Apparel. The winner of this question, who must be a lady this time, will get a 7-foot medium heavy lose combo. Our question, we mentioned it earlier in the show. It is, what is the lake record striper from Lanier? What was it caught on, and how much did it weigh? And then if you want to come in with the fun fact. So if we have any ladies in the comment section that would like a 7-foot medium heavy loose casting combo, come up and give us an answer, and it'll be yours.
Henrietta's about to answer.
Henrietta's going for a wig.
Can she answer?
Can she type?
This is a female. Can she answer?
So
Close.
Close.
Real close.
Oh, you're right there.
You're right on it.
Do you
have the old
Right on
record?
it.
That's the old linear record.
So if you want to bring the first question back, Ryan, I actually will say no.
Very helpful.
It is extremely helpful.
Very helpful.
It is a weapon.
Yeah,
But
from listening to the way they describe it, I can see where it works for what we do now.
I'm
But-
going to disagree with the panel. I think without a fish finder, I'm dead. With the newest technology on these fish finders, for me, and again, I'm going to put in a shameless plug. I'm a Humminbird guy. And have been for a number of years. And having Lake Master on my Humminbird picks out every hump on the lake. And there are times of the year where these stripers are like ghosts. You can't find them, and they're on humps and they're sitting on brush piles. And I can pull out every hump on Lake Lanier and then just drive over that hump when I'm done fishing, find the brush pile, mark it. So for me, having a fish finder in the boat is a must. But that's for me.
It makes you very efficient. Like, there's no doubt about that. When I first started messing around fishing for stripers, I was as basic as you be. I had a kayak, still do, and I would just I would literally I'd put out free lines or put out boards, and I'd chase the birds around, and I'd pull different areas, and every now and then I'd get one. And after a couple, 3-4 weeks, those patterns start to show up. Okay, I got one here at this time. I went back at the same time and got another one. And you start to put those results together, and with or without the sonar, you start to lock in on the areas that have activity, that have fish, and the times to be there. And is it, again, like adding the Humminbird to the kayak, game changer, huge deal. Makes you very effective, makes you very efficient, because then you know, hey, they're here while I'm here, and you know whether or not to move. But just for someone who's starting out, I would go that opposite direction. If you're willing to put in time and just plow a lot of water, and you pay attention to the seagulls and the loons and kind of the conditions around you, you can have some success.
Yeah. I feel like the problem is, though, with these stripers, man, they move a lot and things change so quickly that
especially on your lake.
Yeah, that sonar, man, can really. I mean, I've had people ask me, customers ask me.
I wouldn't give it back. Let me put it that way. Now that I've got it, I wouldn't give it back.
I've had customers ask me, do you have to have same question he asked, do you have to have a sonar? I've told people, for me, I would feel like somebody put a blindfold on my face if I didn't have my graph. I don't have the live scope, but I'm like Alex, I've been on other people's boat that do have it. I haven't really seen it be real effective on stripers, but I have seen it be real effective in shallow water catching bait, like gizzard shad.
Yeah.
3 foot of water.
Yeah, for catching bait, it's amazing.
I was amazed. You be 3 to 6 foot of water, see them, throw the net, and you can actually see the baits doing this inside the net on the live scope.
I saw a video of that the other day, like the first time.
The guy that
we watched
they're like pilchards or something. It was
the guy that I went with. He's like, "Oh, I got 3 or 4 in there," before he ever pulled the net up, and I was amazed by that. So, I think certain situations, the live scope could be a game changer. But
there's a really good guide, maybe like one of the best guides. I'll refrain from using his name because I don't want to put anything out there, but like, he's the master of this, right? And there's a place that we fish like every February, and he has it so figured out. He knows how fast a skipjack will swim down a rock bank. and he'll sit there with his live scope and he'll turn it around, and he'll figure out when that group of 4 or 5 big fish is starting to make their move to push the bait up into the back of this area. Yeah, and he'll sit there and I'll watch him time it. He'll be sitting there like counting, and then he'll say, go. And he'll drop it and he'll send that skipjack off, and he's got those things timed up to where they align at the exact right point, at the exact right place.
Yeah.
And it's just like clockwork. It's unreal what that stuff can do.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Kim Thorstad is the winner. Message me. Ryan Andrew Sheffield on Facebook, and we'll get you took care of, Kim. So congratulations.
Message Fish North Georgia on Facebook. That'd be cool.
Hey, hold on 1 second, guys. I told you, Kim, it was going to be. That was what it was. Sorry, Anyway, I was thinking when you told that story, Alex, it made me think like, so. You're on Lanier. I'm just using Lanier because 3 of us here fish Lanier heavily. And all of a sudden you're behind Three Sisters, in between the 2 mile chute and Three Sisters, and a school of fish comes up. And they come up and you race over there, and in 45 seconds they're down. And now I'm looking with my fish finder going, all right, I feel like the cartoon, which way did he go? But if you got that live scope, you could probably turn it and see that group of fish, right?
You could spin it in you could spin it in a 360 and say that.
Yeah, so that's got to be a game changer.
What depth? How deep is too deep for the live scope to be effective? What's y'all's opinion on that?
Johnny's got the older transducer on his boat, and it seems like after about 60 feet deep, you start
getting real hazy. And
so in other words, at Carter's, it's not going to help me very often.
He's in a whole different.
Yeah. I mean, if you see anything at all, that's good, right?
But past 60 feet, screen size starts really coming into play.
See, he's got the small screen.
Pixelation has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
If you're going to be fishing that deep, you're going to want a 12-inch screen. Plain simple.
Bigger is better.
Bigger the better, yeah.
It's pretty wild about Carter's, though, just real quick. Like, when I was up there, I'm used to Lanier, where if the wind drifts me 20 feet one direction, I might have moved 10 feet in depth, 15 feet in depth. At Carter's, I'm in 20 feet 1 minute, drift off my spot a little bit, and I look down, I'm over 236 feet. Like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
Yeah, it's crazy how different. Sharply that lake just drops off the nothing. It's
like,
amazing.
is there like a bottom bound? Like, what kind of limits them from just going off into the abyss?
I've got 411 feet up there on my Sonar.
Yeah, I've seen 460.
Wow, really?
Yeah, down right at the dam, I've seen 460.
I don't have a sinking line that'll get down that deep.
I have
18 minutes.
I've never caught a striper out of Carter's deeper than 100 foot deep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I have seen them in that 200 something foot of water, suspended out over the trees. I've had people say, well, the lake's not that big. They got to be easy to find. Well, when they get out in that deep water, out over those trees, they can be almost impossible to find, especially if they're constantly moving. So
the last time I was up there, I couldn't mark anything anywhere I went.
And when it's like that, I feel like they're either down in the trees or hanging out right close to the trees, because I've seen that a lot. I mean,
it was wild.
Yeah.
And I thought the same thing, like the Notley. I can find fish on Notley. Notley,
a lot easier to mark.
Yeah, it's not super deep, 100 foot, but Carter's, those fish can completely disappear.
I mean, I've went all over that place from daylight to dark and couldn't hardly mark fish, man. And it's so frustrating because they're there.
Yeah.
But you just can't find them. They're constantly moving and they're deep. A lot of times they're deep. Like I said earlier, times of year when you wouldn't think they're deep. And I think that goes back to the herring.
Yeah, when I'm heading up there at night,
they can be very
in my stomach. Like, what is it going to be like tonight?
Yeah.
Are they going to be up? Are they going to be shallow enough for me to get them, or are they going to be gone? And
I
know within the first 10 minutes when I get there, that like, oh man, I should have went to Mountley. It's like immediate. You know what kind of lake you showed up to that night.
Yeah. Now, one thing that we do pick up on, especially in the summertime, is there'll be certain points or certain areas where those fish they're not going to be there all the time, obviously. But you'll pick up on certain times of the day that they're coming up on that point or whatever it might be. And if you can time it right, a lot of times them fish will come through. I've had them come through and have 4 fish on at one time.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's over. It's done. You might as well go post up somewhere else and wait on another group to come through. When that's, like that, it can be like that.
Now this is a sensitive question. What about the river bite on Carters? Do you guys have a river bite where the stripers head far up? I mean, you can choose not to answer this one. I know that's a topic.
I have had a river bite up there, but honestly, it's been in the fall.
Or no, you guys don't thermocline.
We don't have
a turnover.
No, I do feel like the lake turns over. But I've never seen signs of a thermocline. I've never seen, a lot of times you can see it on your graph, and fish will stack up in it. I've never seen that. Never seen that at Carter's. So I've got graph shots at Carter's from summertime where there's fish from 15 to 80 all over the place. So yeah. I don't feel like there's a thermal. But it's to get back to what you were saying about the river bite. We don't have enough of a river for there to really be a great bite.
That's why I've never gone up there.
Maybe for 1 or 2 boats, but you stick 10 people up there and everybody's not going to do good.
I went up there this past spring to try to experiment if there's a river bite at night, and that river gets really sketchy really quick.
Yeah. I can't even 4-wheel my boat through that thing.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard
I play like my boat's a jet boat.
I have heard that DNR has said that the stripers won't go above the shoals in the river in Carter's. I think when the lake's up, they could go up there. Yeah. Whether they do or not, I don't know. But
I mean, our stripers head all the way up to Helen.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, there could be stripers in LJ.
Alex has started out at West Point.
Yeah.
But as far as being able to go target them, I don't know if that's good enough to be able to. It's definitely not for me guiding. So.
Hey, Terry, do you know that interesting? You said they go all the way up to Helen. So the guys at Unicoi Outfitters that actually own, that lease that ship
in the river up there.
I'm sorry?
I said, I seen you fishing up there at the mill in the river this year, lucky guy.
Oh, yeah. So they will, for $75 in the summertime, you can go up there with a fly rod, unguided. And they'll let you walk that stretch and striper fish that stretch for $75. And those things are just pasted up against that dam up at Nora Mill.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I seen that video that you posted. It looked like fun.
It's a lot of fun.
How what's the biggest striper you've gotten up there below Nora Mills?
I got one this year that was about 16, 17. Wow.
Nice.
It wasn't an Alex fish. But it was getting close.
Yeah.
that would have been a schoolie for Alex.
So Bobby Underwood,
warm up fish.
What is your recommendation for a spinning rod to throw bigger topwater baits for stripers like big chug bugs? Probably that Mojo Bass be a good starter.
I use my same bass tackle, Mojo bass rod, 7.5 foot, 7 foot.
I guess how big is the big chug bug? I guess is the next question. Are you talking about the 1.5 ounce like topwater? Like
I use
saltwater one.
What I use is the Mojo inshore rods, the 7'6" Mojo inshore rods for a lot of the bigger red fins and stuff like that. Yeah. And that seems to be a good all around rod for most heavy things you're going to throw. I mean, once you get into the bigger 12-inch glide baits, you're probably going to want to go with For me personally, I have a legend tournament like swim bait rods and stuff for my bigger. Like bull shads and whatnot, but the 7'6" Mojo inshore is a pretty good rod for throwing the saltwater style baits.
Yeah,
Alex.
As far as spinning rod, I got to default to the Mojo stuff. I mean, as far as mine, like utilitarian kind of non-technique specific, I got to have a 7 foot, 7'6". Like you can't really get much of a better rod for the money.
Yeah, it's a good workhorse rod, and the thing I like about it, I fish at night. So you're going to step on rods, you're going to drop things, you're going to bang into things. And the Mojo series rods has a laminate over the graphite. So usually when you nick it, you're nicking the laminate on it. I used to have a lot of G Loomis rods. I have a lot of broken G Loomis rods now because the graphite is the graphite that you're looking at. So when you nick a G Loomis rod, you've nicked the graphite, and that's a weak spot that's going to come back to bite you one day while you're casting, setting the hook or something.
And St. Croix has a fantastic warranty policy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I run Dobbins rods is their warranty policy.
So, Jeremy, do you guys get to fish a lot of artificial, or like if you're on the road, like you guys were just up at Watts Bar, like
Can't say nothing.
do you like to lean on artificial sometimes just for fun? Or
we was still live bait fishing up there. I don't do artificial like these guys do. And with what I do with taking customers and stuff, I have some people that can fish and some people that can't. Some people have never been before. So I tend to not use real expensive stuff. You know, I'll use, I like pin, for my spin rod, just the battle and the pin rod, nothing expensive, because you never know when somebody's going to step on it or throw it over the side of the boat. I mean,
I'm the one stepping.
I'm the one throwing it over the side of the boat.
Yeah, so
I picked them off the boat before.
But
set the hook
I kind of lean more towards the live bait 90% of the time. I don't do a whole lot of artificial stuff. Summertime, we will catch fish on spoons, and that kind of stuff. And in the spring, March and April, I always keep top water tied up just in case. But I don't do it like these guys do. So well.
I mean, in your spare time, do you just kind of stick with even when you're fun fishing, you stick with what you got?
I'm usually live baiting or either live bait or cut bait.
Yeah. So Henry, you've got a selection of flies. What do you tend to lean on? What's kind of your top kind of 3 in the batting order?
For me, the 3 most important flies for the year are a clouser minnow, which is nothing more than a bucktail jig for a fly fisherman. Usually, and then I've designed a fly called a something else, which is nothing more than a clouser minnow shrunken down into the 2.5 inch size that just breathes underwater and has some secret sauce tied in the throat to elicit the strike. Seriously, it really does. It's got a material that I'll tell, it's not a secret. It's called fluorofiber, and in hot pink, fluorofiber changes color. It's the only flash that if I were to hold up a package and like this and say to you, okay, what color do you see? You'd say, oh, it's fluorescent pink. And then if I do this and I go, what color is it now? You'd say, oh, it's hot orange. And then if I turn it this way, you'll say, oh man, it's turning mauve. So depending on how the light hits it, the color changes on this one specific material. So when you look at people tying flies and you'll see a lot of red crystal flash thrown in as a gill plate, I've changed it out with this hot pink fluorofiber, and I tie it on every single fly that I tie because it elicits a strike. And it's incredible how many times we've tried that on different flies where we're throwing the same line, the same leader. One's got the fluorofiber in it, one doesn't, and the guy fishing the fluorofiber is out fishing the other guy 5-6 to 1. Switch it over and it changes back. So the something else is another one. And then the newest fly on the market that is all the rage is absolutely a fly called a game changer. And the game changer is the bomb. And you can tie game changers that are 2 inches long, and you can tie game changers that are 12 inches long. The only downside to the game changer, it's an hour of your life that you're never going to get back to tie one. And to, kind of to go where Jeremy was going before and said, I use pen rods because if somebody steps on it, it's not costing me an arm and a leg and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's the same thing. If you think I'm going to sit at my vise for 3 hours and tie 3 flies to get somebody to come and not fight a fish correctly and lose 3 game changers in a day, there's 3 hours of my life I don't get back, So it would be like Alex, going fishing with Alex. He'll give me I'm sure he will give me a glide bait, but he's not going to give me one of his custom glide baits.
I've got enough of them. You can fish one.
See, I never realized that it could be that in detail what you're talking, because I'm a live bait. I'm used to using the real thing, and I didn't realize that what you was talking about earlier, that was interesting to me. So
what's been really interesting to me is, like, as we've started traveling more, throughout the South chasing, is just how technical live bait fishing is.
Oh yeah.
It is a whole other universe of the way some of these guys have it dialed in, just like I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Like it's unreal. And it's been really nice, like getting to have a back and forth and talk about some of that.
Well, I can tell you this. I've got a couple bait tanks set up at my house where I keep, a lot of my live bait. And my wife says I spend more time in the live bait room than I do with her most of the time. So if that tells you anything, I've spent a lot of time just seeing how they act, and how they do and stuff. And, which, as you guys know, man, size, a gizzard like this versus a gizzard like this or like this. I mean, those 2 inches can make a huge difference, So
you're ending the question of, for most people of the other persuasion, size matters.
Size matters. Size matters.
We've settled it.
They'll hit a 10-inch gizzard, but they won't hit a 14-inch gizzard that day.
Yeah.
And I've had the big fish.
So old. We fished balloons. We didn't even know about planer boards.
Balloons are wonderful.
Yeah. The biggest fish to this day I ever caught on Lake Lanier hit about a 16-inch gizzard with no stinger hook. Just eat it.
Yeah.
But I have seen times when you had to put a stinger hook in a 6-inch gizzard because of the way they were biting or whatever. So, it amazes me how that can change.
They're remarkably finicky sometimes.
It can be, and
gizzard shad fishing it can be very frustrating because, like you said, a 6-inch gizzard shad, somehow they're getting them off the hook without getting the hook.
Yeah, but a lot of times what I'll do is, especially if I'm pulling shallow water. And it's hard to mark the fish. You're not finding big schools. There's fish scattered here and there. Pulling those shad. Even though if you don't catch them, a lot of times you'll find them pulling those shad, and then you can kind of change things up. Or I've even pulled everything up and just start cut baiting, and then I'll get the blow ups on the shad, but I can't catch them. But I can figure out where they're at by pulling the shad, and then turn around and cut bait them. And I've done.
Like right now, we're pulling. I've been. Me and other guys, like I've been fishing mostly live bait so far this fall because the live bait fishing has been producing better quality fish than the night fishing with artificial. So I'm a leech. I'm going to go where the fun's at, So, I prefer to fish artificial, but if I see the daytime guys catching, multiple 10 to 20-pound fish on live bait, I'm going to fish live bait.
Well, and I told Paul when he told me about this and getting this together, I was excited because I wanted to learn from you guys. What you do a lot of, I've never done a lot of. I would like to do more of it. If I could do it without getting a divorce, but I would like to be able to go out and fish at night and learn more on the artificial side of it, because there is times I feel like this fall, for instance, we've not had a lot of rain and the water's been really clear everywhere. And I know that probably the night bite's the way to go, but being able to get out at that time of night sometimes can be tough, but
I'm having a vehicle. Otherwise, when I started up my YouTube channel, it was Jersey Cats Fishing Adventures. I wanted to go on adventures, but then diesel started hitting $5 a gallon, and my adventures got really, really focused on Lanier.
The circle got smaller.
The radius of my adventures got really shrunk. But Carter's was one of my main, because Carter's has always been an intimidating lake to me. The depth, the fact that the fish can turn on and off, and everyone you've ever talked to is always feast or famine. You're either going to go there and catch 4 or 5 really good fish, or you're going to go there and get nothing.
Yeah.
And so far, Carter's have been proven to be exactly that, feast or famine for me.
Terry, I know a guy. I know
Robert?
a guy from Carter's.
Is it a mutual guy that we know, the Mr. Roberts?
No, it's the guy sitting right across the table from you.
Well, I was that we were taking eats and
I know a guy.
on first bike pad service.
Yeah.
Hey, Henry, I'll tell you. There you go.
That's the bullshit of fly fishing.
There's our 10-inch, 11-inch. There's our gizzard.
Yep, that's it.
To see those come alive in the water is amazing.
And we will. Some of these flies we have to put stingers in ourselves. That's why I took this out, because you guys were talking stingers. We have the same problem with flies where we got to put a stinger in a large fly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. If you look at that, hold that up again, Henry, if you don't mind. Like the hook is like all the way up there in front of the kill spot, right? There's a lot of fly there for that fish to swing at and not get stuck.
But I mean, that's like near almost perfect. That looks better than our hard bait shad imitators almost.
It does. The movement in the water is unreal.
That is.
Well, I want everybody to know. So here at North Georgia Fishing, these are going to be on the Black Friday sale for 65 cents.
How many per angler?
How many?
You know, after we had sat in his what's the word I'm looking for, seminar that day, we had actually started for a while tying the Clouser minnows in line with our flukes, you know. And I have tons of those Clouser minnows.
That had a moment. Popping corks had a moment. Remember that?
Yeah. Popping corks were big there for a while. But the Clouser minnow was, I mean, there were some nights I go out running that fluke during the shad kill, and 9 out of 10 fish were hitting the Clouser minnow, just doing nothing 2 feet up from the fluke, you know.
I'll tell you guys a tip that I use today for a lot of my spin rod anglers that come in the boat with me, because not everybody fly fishes. Probably 50% of the guys come and only fly fish, and the other 50% come and bring another angler with them who doesn't fly fish. And so one of the hot lures for us on Lanier is the Sebile Magic Swimmer, which I'm sure everybody has thrown before. Whether it's
available now at Fishing Georgia for
$8.99, which is going to be on sale on Black Friday for how much?
I think is it. Let me check.
$8.99.
Checks notes.
$8.99.
On sale now for $8.99.
Chrome $8.99. That's I was listening. I want you. I was paying attention. So here's what I do, and this is something we used to do back in New York when the stripers on the East Coast would get onto that itty bitty little 2-inch long bait that seemed impossible to get to feed a lure. We would take a barrel swivel and run it off of our spinning rod and tie the barrel swivel on to the line coming off the spinning rod. Then we would take, and let's just say that was 10 or 12 pound test. Then we would take 15 pound or 20 pound test, and we'd run about 18 inches of it. And on the end of it, that's where we would tie the Magic Swimmer. But when we were tying the 18 inches onto the barrel swivel, we would leave a tag end of about 7 or 8 inches long. And we would run a little fly coming off that tag end sideways. We would run a little fly on that tag end. And now when you cast the Magic Swimmer and you're reeling it in, it looks like the Magic Swimmer that's this big is trying to chase the itty bitty bait that big because it's in front of it. We call it a teaser rig. And guys, I can't tell you.
A little bit like a front runner.
Like a front runner. I can't tell you how many
times. Ryan just said he's about to do that.
That is saved the day for me on striped bass.
Thanks, Henry.
Yeah, I know that was.
I'm about to do that.
That was more than
that
was more than a nugget right there. Oh, yeah. That was hard information.
You know, there's a lot of things that I used to do 10 years ago on Lanier that I don't do anymore, like the teaser rigs, the inline flies with the flukes, and I think back, like this is like reigniting a lot of the old.
Just something we talk about a lot on a lot of shows, like what causes a certain technique that works to fall out of favor.
A laziness, I guess, or success doing something else to where I think I can beat the fish into submission doing this instead of going back to that. I think is more what it is. It's comfort level.
Or it could it be, them seeing the same thing.
So,
but like the teacher eventually working, I just stopped doing it.
Right.
And I don't have an.
It's like we talk about on the bass side. We talk about like that with the spinnerbait a lot. Yeah. Like the spinnerbait fell out of fashion when the chatterbait got big. And it's like everyone's in love with chatterbait. Spinnerbait still
nobody was doing it.
Still catches fish.
I still wax bass on spinnerbaits,
Yeah,
especially at night.
A lot of the kind of old heads, like hardcore guys, was spinnerbait all the time. I mean, what is it? What even is a chatterbait? But it's what's up, Brian?
I wouldn't even know how to use it if you gave it to me. I've never thrown a chatterbait.
Spinnerbait greater than chatterbait.
I'd agree with that.
I've never thrown the chatterbait.
So we got a question from Phil Phil Hutchison for Henry. When you tie, do you use the Popovich pop lip?
Say
that 5 times fast.
So for those guys that don't know what a Popovich is, Bob Popovich is probably the most world-renowned fly tyer. He's the Bob Popovich's, let's just say he's Babe Ruth of fly innovation. And he's probably about a 75-year-old guy. And there's a fly that he designed called a pop lips. And what a pop lips is a fly that what he did was he used sheep in the front of the fly to build a head, and then left the sheep that's off the front of the hook and took silicone and put it on the bottom of the sheep and trimmed it and let it dry, and actually made a silicone lip on a fly, so that when you put that rod under your arm and hand over hand strip, that fly does this in the water and looks like a redfin going through the water. It's called a pop lips. And in answer to your question, I've used them before. I don't use them now because a game changer is a lipless fly and will have the same action as a pop lips and is much easier to throw.
Interesting. But much more difficult to tie.
Almost like a scrounger head.
Or are they
it's
the
almost
same
like
to tie?
Much more. Well, they're both difficult to tie. The pop lips is more trimming and having to coat the silicone sheep, the sheep fleece, and then waiting for it to dry and taking a scissor and shaping it like a lip. I actually have one here. I'll see when you guys start talking bait fish again. I'll live bait fishing. I'll see if I can dig one up and show you what a pop lips looks like.
What's really funny too is like I've had some conversations with a couple people, and I talked to Todd a lot actually while he was messing with his jerk changer. The mechanics of a game changer and the mechanics of a glide bait are actually stunningly similar.
Yeah, I believe it. I
why
believe
they
it.
actually function. It's stunningly similar.
When I happen to have right here, I have a box. I have a box of flies that I don't fish anymore. Oh, I actually have a pop lips. Look at that. Here's a pop lips.
Okay. That does look like a scrounger head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You see this is all silicone right here. And that makes this thing wiggle underwater. But Blaine Chocolate came out with a fly called a game changer. I happen to have one right here, and it is, for lack of a better term, it's a Sabile for fly fishermen. And this is a game changer. Look at all these this is the head. Here's a shank. Here's another shank. Here's another shank. This is all shanks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 articulated bodies on this fly with no lip. And this thing in the water comes in looking like a Sabile and just wiggles in the water without a lip. And it was absolutely an incredible design by Blaine Chocolate. And interestingly enough, Blaine happens to be one of my very close friends. And that fly developed from this fly that he designed, which is made out of what he calls, it's like the same material. It's a soft plastic. Okay. He designed this articulated fly in soft plastic and put a lip on it. And he showed it to me and he said, this is what I'm coming up with, these articulated bodies. It moves in the water. And I said, dude, you got to figure out how to make that thing without a lip. Because
is that a sand eel imitation?
I'm sorry?
Is that a sand eel imitation?
This could be a sand eel. It's just a bait fish of some sort. But anyway, long story short, the reason I mention it is when you put a lip on a fly to make it wiggle and dart, it inhibits the cast. It becomes, wind resistant. And
potato chip in the wind.
Yeah, I'm sorry?
A potato chip in the wind.
Exactly. So flies without lips are preferred because they're easier to throw. And so interestingly enough, and the reason I tell this story, Alex, is because you just brought something up to me that reminded me of it. And it's so interesting. So he's like, how do I make that thing dart and wiggle without a lip? And I said, well, haven't you seen a Sabile magic swimmer? And he's like, no. So I sent him one because he's a fly angler. So I sent him a magic swimmer, and he looked at it and he watched it and played with it. And he goes, "How do they do it?" And I said, "What are you asking me for? I tie Clouser minnows. I tie 30-second flies, not 1 hour flies." So one of my good friends over the year is a guy. All right, I'm name dropping here. A guy by the name of Shaw Grigsby, the bass angler from One More Cast. And so I called up Shaw and said, "Shaw, we got something that a friend is working on, but he wants to make it a lipless fly, but allow it to run and wiggle and move like a magic swimmer." And he says, "I'm going to give you the name of the guy who's the head lure maker and designer at Spro Lures." And I called this guy up and I had a 30-minute conversation saying, "I am not looking to infringe on any of your secrets. We are fly fishermen. And we are trying to do what you guys do with these lipless crankbaits jerk baits that are articulated, that move in the water. How do we do it with a fly?" And he explained to me the dynamics of it. I went back and in the best that I could remember, explained it to Blaine. And sure enough, within 6 months, the Game Changer came out, and it is easily the most popular streamer in fly fishing today in warm water and in salt water. Easily. Nothing even close.
Now, say a person like me who likes to throw artificial and tie weird things on the end of his line with his lures, where can one find one of these Game Changers?
You can find them at, North Georgia Fishing will have them in about 6 months. Once Danny asked me, "Where do I find these things?" You can go to a place called Flyman Fishing Company, Flyman or MEN, Flyman Fishing Company. And they sell them. They retail for about, I'm guessing, about $10 a piece. If you don't want to buy them online,
depends how big you want to go.
You can get them at Unicoi Outfitters up in Helen, or in Clarksville. You can also get them at Alpharetta Outfitters and
Outfitters.
Yeah.
What's Todd's last name, Alex?
You can get them at the Fish Rock as well, and they make them in all sizes. They make micros, minis, finesse, and polar, and that means basically you're buying them from 2 inches up to 6 inches.
And let me tell you, they won't tell you this where they sell them, but they are deadly effective on a Texas rig.
Oh, I can only imagine.
They are deadly effective on a Texas rig.
Can I tell you, Alex, that's so interesting. That's so interesting that you say that, because I was wondering if whether a bass guy could use those drop shotting and wouldn't absolutely waylay on the fish.
Oh, they would waylay those things. Waylay them. Like spy bait replacement?
I just learned a thing to do with my 4-inch jerk changers.
Spy bait replacement?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So anyway,
spy bait's not played all the way out yet, though.
No.
I mean, even to this day, I still have never found a true great replacement for threadfin shads with artificial at night. I mean, that has weight to it that I can get out there. But I could see that Game Changer doing a dropper off the back of a bomber with like a 2-foot leader or something like that, and have that dragging behind a bomber. Things along those lines.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's I can find small lures, but I can't get it out there. That's the problem. I can't get it away from me far.
Terry, here's the other thing. Yes, you could throw it on a casting bubble. You absolutely could. But Terry, here's the other thing. When the stripers, especially like this time of year, are on the surface and they're eating thread fins that are small, and you see them chowing on top, just going crazy, you need something that stays from the top of the water no more than 2 feet down. And a small bucktail is going to eventually get out of that strike zone. Those fish are feeding in this water column right here. And that Game Changer is weightless. So it will allow you to cast. Listen, one of the other things I used to do was we took these little Game Changers and we would take a Sidewinder spoon or an Acme Little Cleo.
Yeah.
We would take the hook off the Little Cleo, because a Little Cleo is a spoon with a bend, which means it doesn't drop like a rock. It wobbles down like this. And so we would take the Little Cleo, take the hook off, put 16, 18 inches behind it, a 15-pound test, tie the game changer on, cast the little Cleo out and reel it in, and that game changer is just wiggling through the water like this and has the wobble from the Acme. There's so many ways that you can.
That's like a Dodger fly setup.
Yeah, you're just kind of hybriding that conventional to the fly, and I think that's a really effective way to fish any of these lakes in the Southeast when they're on super small bait.
Yeah, I've started to use my best imitator for thread fins over the last year has been the Cast Prodigies, the small Cast Prodigy swim baits. They just have a great little wiggle to them, and that the pearl and he has the blue back color out now too, but they're pretty good. But again, it's the weight issue. You know, if I'm trying to stay off of the area I'm fishing, you know, I can only stick a jig head so big. And like Henry just said, you only stay, if they're feeding in the top 2 feet with a heavy jig head, you're only staying in that strike zone for X amount of time until you're dropping below
you're
it,
down there.
or you're having to burn it to keep it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when he was saying is like once you speed up to keep that lure high,
that fish don't want to know nothing about it.
Yeah, you're going too fast. Yeah,
you're going too fast. Right. And
I like that.
Well, listen, I remember, and he just, I see that somebody's thanking Bill Carson for chiming in. I remember Bill calling me a couple of years ago, and he had, I don't know who was in his boat, but he was taking some bigwigs out, whether they were from Johnson Outdoors or one of the companies, and they were in the back of Flat Creek in March. And he called me up after the trip, and he said, Dag nabbit, Cowen, one of your fly guys was back there and I think he caught 16, 17 fish, and we couldn't get a bite, and we were back there throwing everything. And, you know, I'll remember the story. I remember Bill, you know, I just remember the Dag nabbit, Cowen, you and your fly guys, you know, and that's because those baits can stay up higher in the water column.
Yeah. And I can attest to that. I mean, I'm surgical with a fluke in springtime, you know. Me and fluke and surfacing fish, I'm money. But I've sat back in Flat Creek, and Henry has waxed my ass so many times to where I just stop and I just watch him, and I'm like, man, it's like I really need to learn how to fly fish, man.
Must be nice.
I see them. It's just they can match the hatch fly fishermen when they're heavy keying in on those thread fins. The fly is the way to go. Because that clouser is deadly on them. You know, I can only go so small until I have the distance issues. You know,
there you go.
So,
Perfect time.
Here's your time.
All right. So with that, great. So Black Friday special. If North Georgia Fishing only had them in stock, fly fishing for freshwater striped bass. You can get it at any fly shop or on Amazon, and it's only $17. And just to let you know, I make a killing on this book. I think I make 60 cents for every copy sold. And so, but what's interesting, even though it's called Fly Fishing for Freshwater Striped Bass, there's only, of the 10 chapters, give or take in there, there's only 1.5 chapters on fly fishing. The rest just talks about how to find fish, how to locate them, how to catch them. It's, you know, if you're a bass guy and you're not even into stripers, this will teach you how to fish a lake. Because we talk about all the different topography, whether it's seawalls or blow-throughs or pockets or, you know, anything, humps. And, you know, it's just all about where do you find fish. So basically what we did was we took everything that's in Alex's head from here up and we put it into this book. That's basically what we did. So...
Yeah, as someone who's reading it, I could attest to it. It's a lot of good knowledge in there. That's not even touching. I'm halfway through, and I'm not even really touched the fly fishing aspect of it yet. It's mostly about matching the hatch, thread fins. He gives you the history of striped bass and freshwater, how it came to be with the fish from Santee Cooper and everything. It's a really good read. I'm enjoying it so far. But like we were talking text the other day, I can only read so long since my eyesight's starting to go without getting a headache. So it's like I get a chapter, I got to go to bed. Chapter, I got to go to bed. So it's taking a while. I'm getting old.
Listen, Terry, I'm thinking of doing a book on tape, and I'm thinking of either having Danny be the guy that's going to narrate it, or Donald Trump, one of the two.
You got to get somebody with a heavy accent. You got to get somebody like
it'll be tremendous fishing,
like Joe Pesci or somebody like that. You got to have a real strong Brooklyn accent in the book. It can't be red in the southern accent. It has to be.
We got you, Striper, right here, pal.
Right over here. He was over there throwing the fly over the point right over there. Come down to Brooklyn over here.
Henry, how long does your the real meat and potatoes of striper fishing on the fly? Like, what time of year is that? And if someone wanted to go with you, how do they get in touch?
So for me, we start usually right around October. Could be a couple weeks early, could be a couple of weeks later. Generally in October is when we fire up. We go October, November, December, January. We slack off in February, and then we fire it back up at the very end of February, first week of March, and we go to about May 1. And then from there, believe it or not, when that ends, I actually switch over in May to carp fishing on the Chattahoochee with a fly. And I'm also fishing, believe it or not, I'm doing a lot of bass fishing in May and June and July on Lanier on the fly. We do a lot of that during the summertime. If they want to get a hold of me, they can go to Henry Cowen, Cowen, flyfishing.com. That's my website. Or they can call my cell, or actually my home number at 513-678-513-1934, and we'll set up a trip, and we'll teach them what we can. And I'll even, when we're on the trip, I'll make sure I promise to show you Terry's favorite spots on Lanier.
I never get to tell that story about that.
If it's short, go for it.
How long we got?
I mean, as long as y'all are willing to stay here and burn time with us.
All right. We're going to go back to the story that that got the big giant text from Henry when he was pretty mad at me.
Oh, dear.
So that was an old man popped up on the GON for him. He said, he'd been going out taking his grandson night fishing and made a post on GON. Old retired guy, seemed innocent, feeble. Said, I'm having trouble finding lights. I can't see them like you guys. I'm having trouble. And that's when I was kind of guiding a little bit and, taking people out I was taking people out in wheelchairs, handicapped people, just trying to get people out there. So I said, you know what? I'll help you out. Meet me over at the ramp. The first night we got in my boat, took him, we fished around. The second night, this is where I made the mistake. The second time we went out, we were in his boat. And we were fishing, and fishing was kind of tough. And I said, and now Henry had asked me, Henry said, hey, is that you down there that I keep seeing at 4:00 in the morning? I said, yeah, sure enough, that's me. He's like, I figured you would find it. He's like, but do me a favor. He's like, that's the first light I hit with my customers in the morning. He's like, just keep it, in your back pocket. I said, all right, Henry, no problem. Well, I took this old man with me, and I said, hey, listen, we're going to go fish this light. But do me a favor. Promise me to be off the light by 3:34 in the morning. I made a promise to this guy, Oh, yeah, no problem. I ain't going to do that. Okay. Well, a couple weeks goes by. Henry sends me a huge text. He's like, you showed that old man that spot. Because apparently that guy was just camping out there on that light all night long. And Henry's pulling up, and the guy's there every morning. And then, but Henry had warned me about that prior to that. And he was right. It did come and bite me in the butt. And what's even funnier about that old man was I texted him. I was like, hey, you promised. And he's like, oh, well, I've seen it. And he's like, well, Jersey Cat sent me here. I was like, oh, geez, dude, come on. And then a couple weeks after that, I think it was you. It was you or somebody had messaged me that morning. They're like, hey, get up and go check your Facebook. I'm like, why? They're like, go see what that guy posted. And that's when he woke up the next day and posted. I woke up and the old man that I took out started up a guide service fishing. And he said right there in his post, specializing in fishing all of Jersey Cat's secret lights and locations,
Are you serious?
I swear to God. And wow, so that was, yeah, I go ahead.
I think that guy was from Tennessee. Had to be.
Yeah. But that was the catalyst that made me go offline when I deleted everything and backed off. I was just like, this just got weird.
Stealth mode.
Yeah.
There's a reason I don't put things on social media.
Yeah, that changed my whole outlook on it.
Yeah.
Like,
social media has really changed the game a lot.
Yeah.
It really has.
Yep.
Yeah. Fog out the back of all your pictures.
Yeah. And if you leave a landmark in the background of your picture, somebody's gonna find it.
I've made those same mistakes.
Yeah.
And you live and learn. You know who you can trust, who you can talk to, and who you can't.
Yep.
And that's just
Amen.
Yeah, I hate to sound like that, but it's just the way it is. There's some people you can tell things and work together and help each other. There's some people, if you try to help a man, they're going to turn around and it's going to hurt you.
They'll take a mile.
Yeah, it's going to hurt you. So I've even told customers before that have their own boats and stuff. I've even told them, look, just have some respect when it comes to, I'm out here trying to make a paycheck. Don't be sitting right there the next morning when I'm going to be depending on it. Just have some respect. Take what you learn and go somewhere else and try to apply it and catch your own fish.
Apply it everywhere. If you know the how, you'll find out the where.
Right. And personally, I would feel patterns. Don't get me wrong. If you tell me there's fish over here, I'll let I'm going to listen. But I would feel better about it if I could take what I learned from you and go somewhere else and make it happen. Exactly. Find what I feel like is my own fish. It might be somebody else's fish too, but you understand what I'm getting at. It's just there has to be a level of place. Respect.
What was that, Henry?
The biggest thing in the striper game is kind of having a little bit of a very tight network, guys that you trust like your brothers. And I will just tell you, and I'm not patting myself on the back here, but every major striper guide on Lanier that fishes live bait will be happy to call me and tell me what they're doing, because I'm doing something totally different from them. But more importantly, because they know that if I have my brother says to me, where did you get information from? I don't say a word. My closest friends, if somebody gives me something, it stays in the cap and I don't tell a soul about it. And it hurts sometimes not to be able to tell a good friend, hey, I got fish in the back of Flowery Branch because Mac Farr called me and told me, but I can't do it. I can't give up the network. The network is sacred to my fishing, quite frankly.
Yeah. It is. It is.
Yeah.
Especially
in order to be a successful guide, you got to have the network.
Yeah. And I'm like him. Sometimes I feel bad. You don't want to lie to people, but at the same time, you have to protect your you got to take care of your customers and what you're doing first and foremost before you worry about helping.
I just ask people, don't ask me where. Don't put me in that position.
Yeah.
But the thing, if you listen to what I'm telling you, you can take that and go anywhere. These tactics apply on any lake in North Georgia and beyond.
Yeah.
It's the same. They're feeding on the same three. You got gizzard shad, you got threadfins, you got herring. They're going to be feeding on some. There's some trout rivers in some places that we fish, but if you learn the how and the why, the where will come to you. It'll just naturally
take care of itself.
Like when I fish at night, I don't even have my sonar on. I got like the Lake Master charts. I just got my chart pulled up. That's it, because I know the where and the why. So I'm not. If you learn that part, everything else just
falls into place.
You don't need to chase the spots. You don't have to chase the center consoles anymore. You don't have to.
The where is so funny because especially like on Lanier, it's a 38,000 acre lake.
Yeah,
there's a lot of wares.
Yeah,
like and once you kind of know what you're looking for, there's a lot of wares. It can get small fast. Like
right now, there's one creek on Lake Lanier that is getting hammered.
Go get on the merry-go-round.
It's Yellow Creek up on the north end on the Chestatee side.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, guys. Tonight, I know we're getting close to ending, but if there's anything I want to say and that I've learned tonight more than anything else is, dag nabbit, I'm fishing the Chattahoochee at 10:30 in the morning.
But what day of the week?
He got that.
It's got to be a weekday, not a weekend, right?
Tuesdays.
Got to be a Tuesday.
Yeah, got to be a weekday.
Tuesday at
turn it up on a Tuesday.
Tuesday at 10:30.
So, as we get ready to bring it home here, Jeremy, why don't you give yourself a little shout out if someone wants to come fish with you?
Yeah, we're on Facebook and Instagram, Backwoods Fishing. Our website is www.backwoodsfishingguide.com, so you can look us up on there, or you can just call or text. I'm old school, so I like talking to people and over the phone, preferably talking over the phone versus text, but either way works. So but you can check us out on our website or follow us on our social media, which I have a love-hate relationship with. It's really helped my business. I'll be honest. It's helped grow my business. But it's also caused me trouble in other other areas like what we were just talking about. So, but anyway, we're still on there right now. So go see us on social
For
media.
the time being,
For the time being, yeah.
You want to hit Carter's Lake with one of the very best. That's SBA champion backwoods fishing guy. Did y'all weigh that 41-inch striper?
Yeah, it was about 35 pounds. Yeah, it's about
That's a
35
hell of a
pounds.
fish.
Yeah, it was a good
Fish?
fish.
That's a
Yeah,
hell of a fish.
Fort Loudon Dam.
Okay.
Come out of Fort Loudon Dam. And somebody mentioned something about, we was talking about Carter's, and somebody mentioned something about Robert Edison.
Yeah.
But that's who Robert helped me get my start. I worked for Robert. And he told me when I quit working for him and started my own thing at Carter's, he said, man, I wish you the best. But he said, I'm going to tell you, he said, you're going to be gray-headed before you're 40 years old. And well, I'm not there yet, but I'm not 40 years old yet. But I know what he was getting at, and he was right. It's it can be challenging, but hey, we struggle just like anybody else. There's times where we don't catch any fish. There's times where we do. It's just the highs and the lows of it, and our lows are probably lower than what you guys deal with on there.
Rough.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I mean, I've had days where I'm like, man, why am I still doing it? But it's just, I know the potential. I know what it can be, and you just keep going back.
When you hit it right.
Yep, you got to hit it right.
I think for a striper in general, or a fish that you have to be persistent for.
Yeah. They don't.
It doesn't just happen.
I've had people say, well, they eat their, half their body weight every day, and they eat all their. I think that they're supposed to
water.
They eat all the time, but I'm like, I don't know where you're talking about, but it ain't around here. They don't eat all the time. There's certain times that they eat, and it's a tough place to figure out. But I've been venturing out. I've been doing like what you guys are doing, to some extent. I can't go crazy because I can't make money if I go too far. But I've been fishing Notley some, and some other lakes around. So. I've had to, with the fishery that we have up there, I've had to venture out and to try other places because sometimes it's happening, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Like to your point, like I mistimed one of my big spring trips this year. I threw for 9 days straight and blew one eat. No fish.
Wow.
9 days. I come back 2 weeks later, 4 hours, 7 fish, 227 pounds.
Yeah.
4 hours.
Well, I told somebody. I told somebody earlier. We struggled at Watts Bar for the tournament. Mac and all the other guys were struggling too. We caught 8 fish in 3 days.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, I wasn't fishing that spot the whole time. We was trying other places with no luck, but we ended up going back to that same spot, and it ended up being the fish we needed. But for up there, I've been up there and caught 8 fish in 45 minutes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So. The fish we caught were good. They were nice. Anytime you catch a 35-pounder, it's worth the trip.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't ideal by any means. So, I think right now, overall, man, from what I'm hearing, I heard y'all say Lanier's fired up, but I've heard it say, a couple weeks ago it was tough. Now it's good.
Yeah. It's been fishing real good, but
yeah.
There's been a huge biomass of stripers in one particular spot on Lake Lanier. And there's been a huge biomass of center consoles in that same spot.
Yeah, I don't even know where it is because I ain't going.
Ain't messing with it.
Yeah.
Alex, do you have any anyone you want to plug? Anything you want to shout out?
Any spots you want to name?
Any spots you want to burn?
Actually, if there's
maybe somewhere in Alabama we could go.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna say this. I think we're gonna have another special show just to try to crack him open. Because he's got stuff going through his mind this whole time, man. And I want to get into his brain. I really do. But he's having a hard time.
But it's such a vulnerable area to fishing pressure. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, and
What's that?
5 in there today, Terry.
5 in there today?
Yeah, well, it's 15.
Yeah, but it was the middle of the week, and there's 5 boats in there. What's it going to look like Saturday during the tournament? Oh yeah, by the way, we're going to live and die, but it's not going to be in that creek this Saturday. Fine. We're either going to blank or we're going to catch stuff, but we're not.
I'm not that guy that wants to follow the fleet, dude.
I'm not saying I won't know his fishing spots because I know how that is, man. I don't want people to know mine either if I'm depending on it. But what I'm getting at is I'd like to pick his brain more. And I'd like to learn more from him because I can tell. That's got my wheels turning. Yeah.
That's a good way to.
The crystal clear river fishing is something I have to get better at. I do quite a bit of fishing at Loudon and Melton Hill and whatnot, but I've been up up, and towards the lake starts with an N, and with that crystal clear water, those stripers will window shop you to death if you. But I mean, they do it with the glide baits too. But I've had problems getting them to commit. I've hooked a few, but I've hooked some tanks, but I've never got them to the boat. Because I've short struck them. They come up and rolled on it and caught the treble on the way down.
And I'd also like to get Henry to come to Carter's, maybe April, and do some night fishing. I don't know anything about fly fishing, but I feel like if I could get him on my boat, we could go catch some fish on fly rod if it was the right time of year.
I looked up my first night that I fished Carter's. I actually did really well. They were blowing up everywhere, and I was fishing with bombers, and it was like if I closed my eyes, it took me back to like 2008 on Lanier, And then like I said, I went back 24 hours later and completely bombed out.
Yeah.
I guess, but I didn't know about all the different issues with Carter's as far as pump back, releasing, generating. Lanier, they could generate all day and the bite won't change. But Carter's, when they're releasing, that could be a totally different lake, and when they're pumping back, it could be totally different.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
learned a lot in a short period of time about Carter's.
Yeah,
that many different factors contribute.
I mean, I see people all the time that they come, they fish a few times, they struggle, you never see them again. And it's just that kind of place where you can't have 2-3 bad days and give up on it. The only way I've been able to figure it out is just to stay out there, just persistence, like you were saying, and just fish and fish. Yeah. Just fish and fish.
Can't find them, grind them.
Man, I'm still learning stuff. There's still things that happen that I feel like, I'm like, dang, man, I wouldn't have thought that, so you're always learning things, which is, as y'all know that.
That might have happened to me because the first time Jeremy, it's been several trips after that I've not done good.
Jeremy,
yes.
I'm gonna become clean with you right now.
Okay.
I used to fish Carter's Lake.
Well,
the future mug of Jeremy Mullinax.
Yeah, I've already. I got a few. I got a few coming.
At least you still got it up there, Henry. Most guys I know, lost it.
She gone.
I'd rather take gray than nothing.
Yeah.
Honestly, my wife always messing me. So what haircut you going to wear today? I'm going to wear my hummingbird haircut, honey.
Yeah, but it's a special place to me, not just because it's in my backyard, but because of some of the. I mean, I've had some incredible days up there.
And it's beautiful.
I mean, there's nowhere else in North Georgia that I know you can go and have a chance at catching 5, 6, 7, 8 fish over 20 pounds in a day. That can happen at Carter's if you hit it right, And that's, to me, it can be. It's a tough fishery, but it can be special in it, in a way too. So, like I said, it's just you take the good with the bad.
Dilly.
The 2 of the 5 I caught that night last year were the 2 biggest stripers I caught all last year. You know, so.
Well, and I tell customers, Terry, I've told them before, because I'm honest. I'm probably too honest, but I've told people, you may catch a fish of a lifetime, and you may go home with your feelings hurt. Yep. It's just the way it is. I hate it. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that I like it. I don't when it's like it, but it's just the way it is. We've had to learn to.
Hey, let me ask you this, because I think all you guys would probably agree with this. I have customers that I always say, I never know when we're going to catch fish, but I almost always know when we're not going to catch fish.
Yes.
And I take those days and just say, guys, let's reschedule, because today's a day, it's post-frontal, high bluebird skies, northwest winds, and I'm just going to struggle like nobody else's business. And that's what I find on do you find that on the river, that you have certain characteristics that you go out, Alex, and say, there's no way today based on what I'm seeing out there? Or is that not really apply to the river?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Such as?
Dead low, evil, clear water.
No current.
No current.
Yeah, so the amount of water, if they're not generating and it's too low, you're just wasting your time.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's dead low, there's no flow, it's clear, you're pissing into the wind.
No flow, no fish.
Yeah. No flow.
It's just interesting. There are so many patterns we can get from it, and it's all right here. $16.99. No, I'm kidding.
And then,
nicely done.
I say that, and then the best fish caught out of our entire little network all summer was our buddy the last day of his trip when he had been getting his tail kicked, and he was just powering through it on dead low water, half hammered at 2:00 in the afternoon in high sun. And what do you know? A 44-pounder comes out and smokes it at the side of the boat.
You never know, man.
Like, the biggest striper I ever seen was for years when we had that 50 pound bounty. I was the biggest proponent saying there was not a 50-pounder in Lake Lanier because tens of thousands of fishermen hit Lanier every year with the biggest shad they could buy. It just should have happened. And nobody's ever brought a 50-pounder to the scale. But one afternoon, it was it was May, middle of the day, I think 3:00 in the afternoon, bluebird sunny day, no wind, hot as hell. And we were out there out in front of by B Buoy, out by the main channel, out in front of Van's Tavern. And we were reeling up we had a couple big shad out there. We were pulling the hump areas. And we reeled up. We had one. We call them old purple because that shad was just old, dusty, scarred up, purple, fins all clipped, messed up. And when we were reeling them in, I seen the biggest stripe I've ever seen. That, and I'll swear on my soul, my family, everything. That fish was definite 50, 55 pounder. I mean, that fish across the back was like a foot at least from side to side. Yeah. And he followed that shad around for 20 minutes, would not hit it. We were pitching herring to him, everything. Fish, I let it back out, reeled it back up 10 minutes later. He still nosed the tail on that shad, would not touch it.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
Yeah, and I'd never seen a fish that size again, but he just showed up out of nowhere and then disappeared.
It's weird. Like one of my best days, I've never really caught any real giants. One of my best numbers days was just a flat, calm, high sky day. And it was like I got a couple off the bat, and I stopped to like retie a leader, and I just let a line hang, and rod went down. It was like
the best part about that.
And I think the thing about it for me that I noticed was the day before, everyone and their dog had been in the back of the creek. There were boats back there, there were kayaks back there. Everyone was banging away. It was a Saturday, and Sunday morning I was the only guy out there. And when I was all alone and it was quiet and there was nothing else going, baby, it was on. Like they were around and they were eating, and the pressure was off.
Why do you feel like that there's not as many 30, 40-pound fish in Lanier anymore?
It's like a multitude of factors, but I think the biggest thing right now is the gill lice. Probably it seems to be they don't really bother to fish too much until they seem to get over 16 pounds, and then some of them just get hit really hard with the gill lice.
Stressed out,
but what wiped most of our fish off the map, the big ones, was a whole bunch of different factors. The one year we didn't have a thermocline set up due to all the rain we had. That one, I think it was 2016 or 17. The gill lice showed up. The stocking methods that they had, it was like a perfect storm of multiple factors.
17 was the year of the floaters.
17
was the year
17.
we were taking off, heading down the lake for our tournaments and stuff like that, blasting off.
That was the year.
You'd be looking out there over the side of the boat, you would see 20-pounders floating.
Because the 2014-15 era, when everybody was catching high 30s and 40-pound fish, those fish were stocked in 2002, 2003. So it takes like roughly 12 years to grow a 40-pound class fish in Lake Lanier, and then you had all those year classes wiped out, and we're kind of like I heard somebody at one of the striper clubs said the other day, this is the year we're going to see a 40. I don't believe it because from that year class where that 40 should have came from, they were non-existent. Even when they were supposed to be 4 pounds, we weren't seeing those fish. So, I think the DNR said we have less than 1% of recruitment from that year class, and I just don't see a 40 showing up.
I just don't think you're ever going to see a 40 in the area.
Well, and not only that, honestly, we don't get the cold winters. I personally believe to grow to 40s and for those big fish to make it through another summer is they had to feed heavily in February during the shad kill to pack on that extra weight to become emaciated through the summer to finally be released in October so they could get back to feeding on bigger baits again. And I think we don't get those kind of cold winters anymore. I mean, we haven't had a shad kill in 10 years.
That's why the fish downtown top out at 30.
Yeah.
Like they don't grow in the summer.
Yeah, we don't.
They don't grow.
They just survive.
They survive. And those fish in some of those other places we go, like they've got a place to go that's not the lake, that's 55 degrees, full of high protein, high fat, very stupid food. And they put on weight in the summer. Like my buddies at those fisheries that like fish them locally, they're part of my little network. Like they wait for those fish to put on weight through the summer. Like they show up and they're 35, 40 pounds. And then by the end of the summer, they're 50. And they're fat and just like obese.
Yeah, it was always the DNR explained to us for Lake Lanier is if they stock 200,000 and 20,000 make it, after a certain point, I think it's like when they get to 6 or 7 pounds, it's like the half-life of a drug. You know, like you have 10,000 8-pounders this year, and then the next year when they're supposed to be 10-pounders, there's 5,000 left. And the next year when they're supposed to be 12, there's 2,500 left. And, you know, it gets chopped in half. But for some reason, now our fish seem to hit, 15, 16 pounds. And instead of getting cut in half from, it seems to be getting cut by a
The reason I ask is because I've heard so many different opinions.
Yeah.
But as a whole, I feel
they're
like
probably all right, but it's probably as a combination.
it's a combination. But talking to people from other lakes, like people in Tennessee, and seeing like Carter's and Notley, nowhere seems to be like it was in that 2012, 10 to 14. That's what I'm having a hard time trying to figure out myself is
how did it happen in so many places.
I think it's the winters. We just don't get the cold winters anymore.
I forget who said it, but I thought it was really. I really can't remember who said it, but I thought it was really, really, really true. From 2007, 8, like right when the year flipped over to like 2011, 2012, no one had money to burn gas and go chase these things.
That's what I'm
And no one was holding them out of the water for big social media pictures and taking a photo shoot, killing off 40-pounders. Like they've got to get to 40 before they get to 50.
Yep.
And they just had so much less pressure.
Ryan's coming in. Get in here, big dog.
There are more fishermen today than there has ever been in the history of mankind fishing.
I agree with
and I know people's not going to hear this, but I have always been persistent about turning fish back.
Yeah.
I tell people the same thing.
Absolutely.
You're not going to have 30s if you don't turn 20s back.
Absolutely.
And, your person that books a trip once a year and that wants to take some fish home, they have a hard time understanding it. They don't understand the fishery like we do because we're out there all the time, And I try to tell people, look, I'm trying to protect my livelihood. It's not that I just want to be a butt about it. I just, I want those fish to be here for somebody else to catch and, let them get bigger. I mean,
Well, the DNR used to always say, fishing pressure has nothing to do with the climate. But I don't believe that anymore because our electronics are off the chain now.
That's what I'm saying. I feel
you
like
can go on Facebook and study people's reports. Go on and check Captain Max. There's videos all over YouTube. Somebody can.
The
learning curve is not there anymore. Yeah, but I'm not teaching anybody stuff. I'm just putting me catching fish. I just put videos on there, me catching fish. But the learning curve isn't there anymore. People, like you said, back in the recession, there was
a lot shorter.
There was, a busy day back in Flat Creek, or the creek that shall not be named, would be 12 boats. Now there could be 30 boats back there, 40, and there could be 100 boats throughout the day, and it's
crazy.
Just things are different.
That's
now.
crazy.
Fishing
man.
pressure, a good day that somebody would have starting out on the south end of Lanier in the summertime would be 20. Now guys,
he's coming back
50, 60 fish at 80% mortality.
You're not going to make us wrap this up.
I think a lot of Lanier's problem has been the consecutive years now, and I'm not saying this to bash on you guys by no means. I think a lot of Lanier's problem is there's been more water continuously in the lake for the past several years. Yeah. So the fish have a lot of different places to move now. So talking about your comment about a 40, I'm going to say this, and I'm no striper fisherman, but I would hold your tongue on the 40 as the lake continues to fall. Because the fish have got to move. They don't have as many places to go. So they've got to start ganging up a little bit.
I'll put a 50 on it.
You put a 50 on it?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it afterwards. And you guys could talk all night long, but we are running out of time.
Okay. So let's go ahead and bring this in for a landing.
This will be part 2.
Yeah, we might have to do a part 2.
Yes.
Y'all be game? Henry, would you be game for a part 2?
I'm up for a part 2 if Georgia wins the national championship.
That's a lot of pressure on Kirby. We'll call him and tell him.
Tell him what's riding on it.
Tell him what's riding on it. We get to pick Henry Cowan's brain if you guys win another natty.
You better win.
You better win.
Ooh, there's a big one though right there. We got to touch on that before we quit.
Fish handling, and Henry, it was a bullet point you gave me. Fish handling and summertime mortality. Let's run that down as briefly as we can, and then we'll bring it in for a landing.
Well, all right. Jeremy, I want to apologize first to you and your family when I say if guys want to talk about the fish first, then they ought to really watch how much they're fishing, at least on Lanier, in the summertime when those fish are stressed out and should not be being caught in August and early September, because that's when you have the biggest mortality of the year. And it's hard getting to revive fish that time of year. I personally would like to see, and it'll never happen, but as a wish list, I would like to see the DNR take an area of the lake, let's just say from Three Sisters south, and say, you can't fish Three Sisters south in the summer. You can fish north of Three Sisters, and whatever's down there survives. I just think that kills a lot of fish. On the other hand, it is a put and take fishery. So you know what? If they die, they're going to put more in, and that's okay. You know, you look at other lakes in the country like Texoma. These guys have a natural reproducing striper population, and the guides are killing 50 fish a day, and it doesn't do a thing to these, you know, to their population. It's just unbelievable. But there are certain reservoirs that just can't handle that kind of pressure. Lanier is clearly one of those reservoirs because we're in Metro Atlanta Lake. So my only thing is, you know, guys are going to fish them over the summer. If I had a wish list, I wish come August 1 until, let's say, September 10th, we didn't go down below 25 feet to chase fish. If they can be caught up high on free lines, I'm fine. But if they're down deep, leave them alone and let them finish stressing out for the summer.
Those fish that come up are going to survive, though.
And the bad thing about that for me is, you know, the summertime is probably my busiest time business wise, but I'm not necessarily targeting big fish that time of year either. We'll use smaller baits and just catch a mixed bag of, you know, we catch a lot of hybrids in the summertime, which I feel like do a lot better in the warmer water, you know. So, you know, I try to target the bigger fish more in the spring and fall. We do catch some 20 pounders in the summertime, and I know it's tough on those fish, but you can't help what bites your hook either. But I agree, man. I think, you know, the summertime really, it does take a toll on it. But during the cooler months, when these fish, when you can revive them and they'll swim off good on their own power and you feel good about it, you know, I encourage everybody to turn them back. You know, don't keep a 15, 20 pound fish. If you want to eat some, go catch some smaller fish, you know, turn those bigger fish back so that we can have 30, 40 pounders one day again.
And Jeremy, I'm going to tell you something else. And I have a couple of my customers that just use it and I hate it. And I try to encourage them not to. I'm not a fan of boga grips. Holding a fish up, and Alex, you probably know this as well as anybody. Holding a fish up vertically is the worst thing you can do for a fish. You want to weigh a fish, then you attach your boga grip to your net and lift that net out of the water, get a quick, while that fish is laying horizontal in the net, weigh that fish and get that fish in quickly. And you know, just holding a fish up vertically is so bad for that fish.
It is.
And so that's just, you know, another thing that I just like to mention, how we handle a fish can make a difference.
We weigh ours now. A point for the boga grip though. I love boga grips because I don't use landing nets.
Yeah,
I land them with bogas, but I don't hang them.
That's what I mean. Yeah, landing them with a boga is fine, and then holding them up vertical, you know, horizontally for a picture is great. But the minute you see the guy doing this, and that fish is vertical, that's just not good for the fish.
Now I'll hang a small fish from a boga grip, but if I'm using the boga grip, I'll have the fish supported with the boga grip on the jaw.
What do you're a fillet and release guy?
No, I haven't kept the striper, and I think they're disgusting. I won't eat them. I don't like them.
Henry, how do you feel about venting fish?
You know, I don't know enough about it, honestly, because I'm not catching my fish deep. I don't go near those fish that time of year.
See, I've been
I'm for it. If it's proven and it's scientific and it works, that's great. I just unfortunately come from an era back on Lanier when Reggie Weaver was our lake biologist. And it was Reggie's opinion. Now, granted, it's an opinion, but it's coming from a scientist. That's 75% of the fish that we catch over the summer do not survive, even if they swim away.
And that's on Lanier.
Yeah. Reggie
Yes.
told me it was 80%.
So
8 out of 10.
somewhere like Carter's, where we don't have a thermocline and the water quality is different, that mortality obviously could probably be different.
I bet yours
I'm
is
telling you
better.
what, I'm at the end of this broadcast, I'm calling all my summer clients and sending them to you, Jeremy.
That'd be good, man.
I was at the meeting that Reggie had with us at the Striper Club that one time. When he said it was 80% mortality, I stopped fishing after that in the summer. I was like, man, because I don't eat them. And I'm like, man, 8 out of 10 die when I release them. I'm like, that was like wow.
Well, it's like the methods that a lot of
yeah.
people use too. Like you're pulling lead core, you're pulling umbrellas, and like lead core especially. You've got by the time you got 10 colors out plus your leader. I mean, that's
and you're dragging the fish at 3 miles an hour through the hottest water.
That fish is
because it pulls him
300 feet back when you hook him, and so he comes up out of that deep water to hit, and then you drag him through the surface layer.
I remember Henry might remember when they were trying to. I think it was. I can't remember his name. He used to hang out with Dan Duncan. But they were trying to use the sequelizer. Remember the Boga grip that would release it 20 foot down?
Yeah. Robert Edison has actually used that on Carter's, the sequelizer. He said it worked good, but it's a little more time consuming.
Yeah.
I actually use they make vent tools, but they're bad about getting stopped up. I use a turkey baster needle because the holes are in the side of it, not in the front. And I go right in behind that side fin under a scale. I go under the scale and down. And we've talked about this on here before, and I usually do it. I put the fish in my bait tank. Yeah. So I'm doing this, so I'm not messing with it out of the water doing all this. I try to do it quick. I'll vent the fish in the bait tank.
And it's cool oxygenated water. Too.
Right. As soon as the bubbles stop, you pull that needle out. The scale covers the hole up, and that fish will take back off on its own. Now, what he does past that, who knows? But I feel pretty good about it if they swim off on their own.
Now, I've actually had somebody, not directly, but indirectly, give me crap about the way I release fish. This time of year, I catch a striper. Now I hold them up to the video camera. I might measure them on the bump board, but I torpedo them back. Yeah. I don't. If it's a bigger fish and I caught like a 25, 30 pounder on a jerk bait with light line where it took me, 10, 15 minutes and I exhausted that fish, I'm going to take the time to sit with them, revive them, but when I catch a 14 pounder,
you can hunt that thing back in the water.
Yeah. I'm not going to sit there and go through the rigmarole because he's still fired up. I'm dealing with the fish. I can feel the fish, how much life he's got in him.
Yeah. You can tell.
And I just,
as soon as they go in the water, you can tell if they need to be revived or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If he wasn't going to survive, he'd bolt off and then, come up. But
has Henry got his book out again?
I'm reading something.
Did you learn anything from that book?
Yeah, here's what it says. They talk on the back of the book. It says, catch and release, the do's and don'ts. Here's a good one. You ready? Don't get after your fish.
Don't get after fish. Oh, crap.
Hell of a start.
You mean I got to throw my hook back in the water now?
That's the first thing it says. Don't drag your fish across the dry sand. Don't lift the fish by the tail. Don't touch the red gill rakers. They are equivalent of human lungs. Here's one for Terry. Don't drop the fish. Dropping causes serious injury.
Yeah, Terry.
Don't drop your fish. Don't kick a fish.
I try not to.
Don't release without first resuscitating. And don't lift the fish by the mouth. This can cause serious internal injury. Anyway, it's in the book.
Oh, I agree, Kurt. I love spotted bass. I eat the heck out of spotted bass.
Spots are delicious.
They're big crappy to me.
We've got a lot of good walleye.
Brett Wendell, that's right.
That's the best.
Keith.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember Brett's name for some reason.
I don't know how to catch them all the time, but they're good.
I tell you,
catch them, they don't go back.
Have you ever ate a flathead?
No. Not that I know of.
You know what? I think
that's better than walleye.
I've rested a beer on one.
I prefer flatheads over walleye.
Really?
That's the God's honest truth. I'm not gonna lie.
And if I'm gonna eat a freshwater fish, it's walleye or crappie.
Like I say, God made flatheads ugly for a reason to keep everybody from trying to eat them.
Or yellow perch.
They're phenomenal.
Yellow perch.
Yeah, yellow perch.
Well,
Yellow perch.
Fish taco.
But with all that being said, I'm a striper fisherman, and so that's why I feel it. People that bass fish, they probably, I'll just eat the stripers. You know, ain't no big deal.
I don't think they taste that good. I really don't.
I don't either. I don't.
You know, saltwater
Some
stripers have a
people swear
different
by it.
taste than
Stripers
freshwater
are delicious.
Well,
I'll be
I've
that
heard
guy. They are absolutely delicious to me.
What is that?
Stripers.
I had
Really?
one blackened
I love
one time that I really liked. It was,
I blacken them.
Yeah.
That's what I
Don't
do.
tell
I
any of my
blacken 'em.
customers that, please.
that was the only time I've ever had one where I was like, I was done and I sat back and I was like, that was good. Any other time, like fried and whatnot, it's just not.
I mean, I honestly though, I think and most people understand it. It's just Carter's Lake in general. We just don't have the fish.
Yeah,
to be
you
able
don't have
to
a huge
do it.
population.
If I done it, and if you come up there and do it, and this one does, it wouldn't take much to kill it. I mean, so I have it's a little bit different than where Lanier gets however many you said earlier stripers. We get like 11,000 a year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, release the Carter's fish for sure.
Yeah,
Please. Don't eat strippers. Thanks, Brian.
Hey Terry, saltwater
What's that?
striper or reganata?
The oreganata, I had it at Pizziola before, but I've not had it as a.
Things just got Italian
stuff.
Forget about it. It's so freaking good.
Yeah. We just got Italian right
What are you
there.
talking about over here?
Leave the gun, take the
Northern
cannoli.
speak.
It's phenomenal over here. You're giving me agita.
All right, 2 hours 45. This is our longest episode ever.
Part 2
This was
coming
great.
soon.
Part
This
2
was
coming soon.
fantastic.
We've had a wonderful, wonderful time.
When I film my videos, you know how much I have to cut out from me just blabbing about
Yeah.
fishing?
My
videos could be 5
Been
hours
some of the
long
most
easily.
fun I've had at the table in a long time.
Yeah, this is a blast.
Henry, thank you so much for being a part of this
Yes,
and for
thank
sharing
you.
some of your knowledge with us.
Absolutely.
Go
Oh,
dog.
I gotta say one more thing. I want to give
Go ahead and say
a shout out to. We was talking about the SBA.
Yeah.
Jeff DeRoach and Mac Farr both put that deal together, and I want to try to encourage everybody to look into that for next year. They're trying to build the thing up. It is a catch and release format picture thing. So we had a great time fishing with those guys. There wasn't a lot of people fishing it, but the guys that were fishing it were very competitive. So
I plan to be in on it this year.
okay, good,
For sure.
good. So we just wanted to throw it for anybody that might be listening.
Jeremy, do you know what Mac Farr's
Need a small guy.
secret weapon
My
is?
boat's only this big.
What's that?
When Mac Farr's tournament fishing, I will tell you his secret weapon. You ready?
Umbrella
Ready.
ring.
Fig Newtons.
Fig Newtons.
Fig Newtons.
Yeah. And we have Fig Newtons, and in here we have Fig Newtons.
Yeah.
He's a Fig Newton eating machine, man.
Yeah. I haven't
I've
tried the
seen it.
Fig Newtons, but if things, when things,
Things
get
get
tough,
tough,
man,
Tough.
You're gonna have to keep the box.
You gotta
I'll
go
try.
deep in the boat
I'll
snacks.
I'll try it. I
Listen,
mean,
when the when the Bisco's Fig Newtons go on sale at Publix, 2 for $1, you can go to Sugar Hill and you won't find a Fig Newton on the shelf.
Mac bought them all out.
Bottom out.
But yeah, anybody that striper fishes, I think it would be something to look into. It was a really fun deal. A lot of good guys, and they have a Facebook page. Like I say, so
That's Southern Bass Association.
Yep,
There it
SBA
is.
Southern Bass Association. They're working right now on the schedule for next year,
Yeah.
and I know that I'm sure there'll be Lanier tournaments. Maybe I don't know Hartwell and maybe Watts Bar again. I don't know. They're still talking about it, but we'd love for everybody to try to look into that because we had a great time, and they're trying to get the word out. They're trying to build it up, get sponsorship for it. So, and this is obviously a great way for
Yeah.
that. So,
Awesome. Thank you for coming out, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Alex,
appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
this is your brainchild here.
Yeah, thank you for
How did
entertaining
it go?
Oh, it was a blast.
So Terry,
Jersey Cats Fishing Adventures on YouTube, sponsored by Captain Max Lures. So go check his website out. Everything you see in my videos, you can buy on his website. And that's my shameless plug right there.
There you
Jersey
go.
Cats Fishing Adventures on YouTube and CaptainMax.com.
And
so
Ryan's going to
shameless.
help me
And hummingbirds.
set
Gotta
up
buy
my YouTube.
Get your hummingbird.
We're going to work on the YouTube.
Yeah.
So obviously, for us here, all of us here at Fish North Georgia, For Her Outdoor Apparel, Red Bobber Gear, Buford Dam Bait and Tackle, J&S Contracting, Elite Landscaping and Pressure Washing, and of course, RichCollins400homes.com. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. It has been a pleasure.
Yeah,
check us out, Fish North Georgia, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, Patreon.
Spotify.
Come up to the store. Check out Black Friday deals. We'll be laying those out on social media all week. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night. Good fishing. Good luck out there. Take care.